May the words of my mouth and the meditation of mine heart be acceptable in Yahweh's sight. He is our strength and our Redeemer, and it's in His name, which is His authority, that we pray, praise, proclaim, project, and protect today's message. I'm out. Welcome to everybody. It's been a couple days. We're back in. Hola, mi nombre es Kofi. ¿Cómo está? Bonjour, je m'appelle Kofi. Ça va? Ni hao, namaste, abarigani, akuaba, itasen, Ohio, Osayo, Anakitawaya, Jambo, Mimini Kofi, Nina Franco, Katana Nuewe, Shalom, Wakwatav, Barak Allah Cham Yachava, Shalom Allah Cham Yachava, Tedach Yashdel, Guam Yashdel, Anan Kofi, Kohalet at Servants of Christ, Mashalom Che. Hello, everybody. I'm Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. All righty, let's get into this. Hello, Shalom, peace, peace, peace. Pleasure to be back with you. Haven't had something that started up with the foot, and then my body was all over the place. Just had to take some time, but I'm glad to be back in front of you. Thank you guys for well wishes and prayers and all that great stuff, and I appreciate it. I know I'm behind on a bunch of stuff, including some stuff we're gonna have to get done today. But I thank you guys. I appreciate you. Matter of fact, before we even get into the hellos and everything like that, something that hit me that I didn't make sure we did in public, and I said we are going to have to redo because I was all over the place. We're just going to go ahead and try to figure out something. So we're going to figure out these real quick, these Zoom meetings real quick before we start, just so I can make sure that I'm on track with them. So let's see, the 18th is coming up at 11 a.m. And I'm going to go ahead and put this out to everybody. But at 11 a.m. Zoom meetings, at 11 a.m. Eastern. Let's see. We're gonna try and do the Carolinas on. So this will be on, I guess, February 25th. No, February 18th. February 18th at 11 a.m. I guess we're gonna do Carolinas. Try to make that work. Matter of fact, technically, we'll do Georgia and the Carolinas. Let's see, on at 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time, which will be 11:30 a.m. Eastern New York time. Let's try and see if we can fit in everybody on. Let's see, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky. Let's throw Arkansas in there. Just why not? And let's just throw in Louisiana as well. Try and see if we can get a little bit of stuff in there. Let's see on that Saturday. Let's see. Yeah, let's just make it that February 25th. I know we haven't started yet. I know some people are like, oh, we'll get to it. I just got to do this now in my head, or else it's going to keep getting further and further. At 11 a.m., let's make that, or it'll be 10 a.m. Central. Let's make that Texas on February 25th at 12:30. Let's make that what we have it, I believe, which is, so we said what, Texas, and at 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Central. Let's say we're gonna make that. That was supposed to be Illinois, Michigan, Dakotas, Missouri, Ohio, and Wisconsin. Oh, and Indiana. And then let's try and make about 11 a.m. Pacific. Let's try to get everybody on the West in Pacific time. That's going to be Cali, Washington, Nevada, Arizona, all that great stuff over there. And then on March the 4th, we're going to have to make that at about 11 a.m. Eastern. We already had that set up for, let's see, we already had that set up for Florida. So we'll do Florida. About 12:30 p.m. We'll make that. Everybody in Northeast region, New York. So that's New York, Rhode Island. We're on. Okay, yeah, that's what we do. New York, Rhode Island. Uh, sorry, y'all. New York, Rhode Island. What else is up there? Connecticut. What else is up there? I don't think we have anybody in Maine. We'll include them. Delaware and New Jersey. And then at 2:00 p.m. Eastern New York time, we'll try to do a Zoom meeting with Maryland, Virginia, DC, and with the Pennsylvania in there too, even though they're going to be two separate places, but at least we can get that. All right, so I'll start. So we'll start putting stuff out for everybody for those places, but we'll go ahead and say it real quick before we start. And I'll say it at the end. So February 25th, or sorry, February 18th, we're gonna try and meet up with at 11 a.m. on Zoom with Georgia, those in Georgia and those in the Carolinas, at 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time. So that's 11:30 Central. We're gonna be dealing with on this Saturday, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Louisiana. On February 25th at 11 a.m., which is 10 y'all time, 10 a.m. y'all time, we're going to try to deal with Texas at 12:30 p.m., 11:30 a.m. on February 25th, 11:30 a.m. Central. We're going to try to deal with Illinois, Michigan, Dakotas, Missouri, Ohio, Wisconsin, and Indiana. 2:00, we're going to deal with everybody on specific time. That's not this Saturday, but that's February 25th. And then on March the 4th, the first Saturday of next month, we're going to try at 11 a.m. deal with Florida, as we already have scheduled. 12:30 p.m. to deal with New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, Delaware, New Jersey. And then 2:00 p.m. We're going to try to deal with Maryland, Virginia, D.C., and Pennsylvania on March 4th. All right. So we'll try to make all that work. Had to do that, especially because I've been off some days. Now that we got that together, we're going to try to do that on Zoom. So you should be getting a text message, email, or DM. All right. If we have your information. If you don't get something about that, just let us know so we can make sure we get you the information. We appreciate you so very much. Okay. All righty. Okay. And thank you again for everybody for your prayers and your consistency and needing to be there on time. And I apologize for my lack of consistency. It is what it is. I needed to heal some, and I'm back in position. So we appreciate you and we thank you so much. And thank you for your prayers too. We needed it even for some family stuff that was going on in the midst of all that. Now let's say our hellos and let's get into today. Alrighty, how you doing? Lynette, Denise, Brother Jermaine, how you doing? Appreciate y'all. Damaged Soul, Nay, Tahiti Sweetie, Yasan Ma, Minister Tamara, Money Green, Big Roy, Ernie's Heart, Ladybug. Did I say? I don't know if I said hello already, but there's nothing wrong with saying it twice. Righteous Warrior, Concrete Rose One. I'm having issues. GG00012, I think. How you doing? This is Sharice, I think I saw in there. Brother Alton. Was I mute? Was I aware that you were muted? No, I'm not. I wasn't aware. But the moderators and everybody. Oh, I forgot to say that moderators, we're going to try and see if we can have a meeting with just the moderators at some point too. So we'll try to fit that somewhere. Probably have to be March 11th. Maybe we'll make that like March 11th around 2, because maybe on March 11th we can finally just have an SOC meeting with everybody. And then right after that, we can go into just something for the moderators. So we'll put that information out for you guys too. But as far as the moderators, I'm not sure why they muted you. I'm not aware of it. I trust the moderators. There might be some things here or there that get caught up or something like that. But for the most part, let the moderators do what they do. If you're just saying hello, if you're just saying God, they might mention something as far as we don't say things about God here because we don't worship God. But that shouldn't be any reason why they're muting you. If usually it comes to something where it's like, hey, we're asking for you to, respect something. You can question whatever you want. You can ask whatever you want. We just ask that you respect each other as human beings if they feel like something's done or said. Also, too, we have to be careful because TikTok tries to lie about certain things, whatever, especially if you don't hit a certain criteria or you don't look a certain way for them or you don't speak what they want you to speak. So we protect this environment. That includes even if you're cussing people out or saying things that could be like iffy, then sometimes we have to remove that from here just to protect the environment. But we praise y'all that you came back. If you'd like to listen in, if you have questions on things we're talking about, feel free. So that's what it is. How you doing, Charles? Thanks for being part of the community. Will Patrick, Sister Deborah, everybody who's on, Sister Tracy, New Jersey in the house. Okay, cool, awesome. We appreciate your presence. Thanks for being on with us, Jay and Tink. Yeah, that Bible's the real deal. Yeah, that's a Ethiopian version of it, but it's still something great to be able to look at. How you doing, Brother Taryn? Cream, smoke, smoke the God. How you doing? Appreciate you. How you doing too? I don't know how to pronounce it. Is it Tumalobo Lamasha? Not sure if I'm saying that correctly. How you doing, Sister Nadine? Big Ock, thank you for the love. And how you doing, Charles? Everybody, we appreciate you so much, and we thank you. So, and don't worry about the text number, even though we'll have that information up. Matter of fact, I guess before we get started, if you're on YouTube, you can go ahead and look in the description with the video, and you'll be able to see how you can get in contact with us. If you're somebody who just joined us for the first time, you want to take a screenshot real quick. If you're on TikTok, that's the number that you can text us so we can try and get your information. To everybody else, I know I've been off for a little bit, so I got a lot of stuff to catch up on. So I see your texts. I saw them. It was just kind of a lot. It still is a lot, but it was a lot for me to deal with yesterday and continue healing as well, stuff that my family needed. But I will make sure I get in touch with you. If we miss meetings and things we were supposed to have, we will make them up. I promise you. And feel free to remind me about things we were supposed to get done in certain days. All right. So you can always feel free to text me back or to contact us. We ask that you text first. Calling is usually not going to, the way the system's set up, especially if you're trying to get a hold of me, is usually not going to be the best way to get in touch with me, with a lot of stuff that we have going on. That being said, thank you again to everybody. We appreciate your presence. We thank you again. Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. How you doing, TJ? How you doing, Minister Shante? How you doing, JNL's Medical Transport? All right. So today, and I always forget that because they started doing this thing. Let me mirror the image. Okay. So today we're gonna be talking about. We're kind of revisiting something we talked about with empirical data, but today's theme we're going to talk about data cannot be institutionalized. Data cannot be institutionalized. And once again, we're coming from a certain culture perspective, right? But data cannot be institutionalized. It shouldn't never be institutionalized. And when we started making institutions out of data, this is where a lot of people have messed up, right? Including ourselves, right? When we started making institutions of data, out of data, that's when we messed up. So data cannot be institutionalized. It's if we're talking about studying, if you're going to places where they institutionalize data, then you've already messed up, right? So for example, somebody says that's not a big deal, or I don't comprehend what's going on, or whatever, right? Well, data shouldn't be perspective either, even though a lot of people make perspective data. That's why we shouldn't give context. But I agree with you that a lot of it has become that, but we should never have context without facts. We should never have facts without context. How you doing, Sister Helen? Right? It should be contextualized facts. And that's what we're giving you. And we also, even if you want to talk about perspective, this is a different perspective than many have, right? I'm coming from a very Afrocentric, very Israelites, very biblical, very kingdom-minded, monarchy-minded instead of capitalist viewpoint. And so there's going to be some things that you will hear. And all I'm asking is that maybe you guys listen to it enough so that we'll be able to get there, right? But data cannot be institutionalized. And how you doing, Sister Betty? Data cannot, it should not, should never have been institutionalized. So what's the difference? Watch this. So if I tell you about marriage, right? Marriage is an institution, right? If I tell you about marriage, if we're talking marriage, marriage is an institution, right? So if I want to see what's going on with the marriage or how marriages should flow, I should look for what? Data to see what happens in someone's marriage. But what happens is that people go to the data and say that, hey, the data is what comes first. So watch this. What is marriage? Right? In our culture, sex is marriage, marriage is sex. If you're talking about spiritually, it's two spirits working together as one. If we're talking about with the Most High, we're talking about what? Becoming one with the Most High, intimately, knowledge. So in the spirit being married unto him, right? That's marriage. Okay. So out of the marriage, right? The marriage is the institution. Then if I have manifestations that come out of that marriage, we would call that data. And how you doing, Minister Sharon? Thanks for being on. Right? And how you doing, Erica? Erica Juju, thanks for being part of the community. So marriage is the institution, right? But out of that institution comes data, and I can use that data to inform me about said institution, right? So if I say I'm married to the Most High, there's data that I have, right? This is not the institution, right? It's not the institution, but it is data that I have because this is law and case study, right? So the law and case study is data that informs me about the institution of the kingdom of the marriage that I say that I'm in, right? On the physical, right? On the physical level, this is what goes on. And thank you for the compliment about the shirt. Appreciate it, about the top. So what happens though is people make institutions or stop thinking about the institution. You start thinking about the data. So if we have physical marriage on earth between a husband and wife, how you doing, Big Ock? Hopefully you're staying safe out there on the roads, on your travels, or on your driving, right? So if marriage is the institution, catch this now, right? A lot of people are more concerned about the data. And I'm not trying to say we got to belittle people, but just here, I want you to get the context, right? So your children are an indication of how the marriage is going. That's data. But what happens? Oh, my children come first. But that's not how the institution works, is it? Is that how the institution of marriage works? Sex is marriage, marriage is sex. Two become one, even in the flesh. But you'll say my child is more important than the relationship with my spouse. And then you get to midlife crisis, and then you get to other things, right? And then you start going up, and before you know it, it's too late, where you're just like you stay together for the children. Now you never invested into one another, right? Into the institution. So since you never invested into one another, what happens? I don't know what we're here for. It's like I'm with a stranger, right? We don't have the same belief system. We're not equally yoked. You hear all this stuff because you got into the data, but never sold into the institution. Money is data. Sure, finances are necessary in a marriage, right? When two are one, everything flows. Matter of fact, I'm reminded of what football player for the Pittsburgh Steelers, American Samoan. What is his name? Safety, has long hair, Hall of Famer. I can't remember his name right now. So I don't know if you guys can help me with his name. That bothered me. I was literally studying some of the stuff that he said and wrote yesterday. How you doing, Linda Walker? Thanks for being part of the community. What is his name? I see his face and everything. How you doing, Sister Marcia? Thank you, Troy Polamalu, right? Polamalu. So Troy Polamalu, he talked about his marriage. And he was giving his acceptance speech in the Hall of Fame. I went back and listened to it because I've never listened to it. I've heard things, I've read excerpts of it, I've heard him speak a lot, but I never actually listened to the speech. So I went back and listened to his speech yesterday. Went down this interesting rabbit hole as I was laying in bed and trying to heal up and stuff. But I ended up on his speech. And when I looked at the speech, he said that he honored his wife in the speech, and then he honored his two boys. And he said, boys, the best thing I could ever do for you is to love your mother, right? And I said, this man got it. How you doing, Treat by Living Water? I said to myself, when he said that, this man's got it as far as his marriage. He said, boys, the best thing I could do for you as a father is to love your mother. I said, man, I never heard anybody really say it like that. I think I might have heard a couple people, but especially in that kind of venue, right, where he's getting the bus and they're trying to be like he's going to live forever, yada, 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 gladiatorial sports. He said, the best thing I can do for y'all is to love and honor your mother. He had it correct. If I make sure the institution is correct, then all the data will support the institution. Right? And how you doing? Is it I don't know how to say it. Is it Charistas? I don't know how to say it. I'm sorry. I see girl at the end of it. Uh-oh, now I missed the name. Oh, there it is. CHARISESTL girl. I'm sorry. It's probably something really easy too, but please forgive me. But thank you for being on. Appreciate it. And how you doing, Brother Dwayne? See, so he said, I'm going to give to the institution. When I give to the institution will provide the data. What happens with a lot of people is you have money issues, and you think that the issues. Oh, Sharice from St. Louis. Okay. Right. Well, welcome on. Thank you for being on. Right. So a lot of you are donating your time and your effort and your energy into the data. We don't make that much money. Since we don't make that much money, we're not going to do. But see, there's people, I've been homeless before, right? And I've seen people who live on the street, right? Who don't have money, but have better marriages than some of the people who have all the money in the world. Been together 20, 30, 40, 50 years in the street. And somehow, some way make marriage work, because marriage is an institution. Now, is that what we would hope for people? Of course not. We would hope that people would have some money, because money is part of seeing some of the data. But what I'm trying to tell you is a lot of people focus on. So now, what's the number one reason for divorce, especially in the West? Right? In the West, number one reason for divorce, Money Green, is what? Is people be talking about we don't have enough money. Right? But see, if you got the institution, you got everything. And if you use the institution correctly, then the data pops up to support it. If you know there's an institution, see, every institution that we know about, we look for statistics. We look for specific statistics, don't we? Right? We look for statistics. According to this culture, right, they say that a model is supposed to look a certain way. So if you tell me somebody's a model, I look for certain data, even observational. Why? Right. Even as far as observation, how you doing, Sister Irene? Even as far as observation goes, I'm looking for certain data, because you said model, right? Even though I don't believe that what a lot of people think models are is the only standard for beauty, if it should be a standard at all. Right? How you doing, Trey Mayfield? Thanks for being on. All right, being part of the community, right? But I still, when you say it, as an institution, that I say, okay, there's certain data that should tell me what this is, right? But a lot of people do it the wrong way. You look for the data to try and say what the institution is. No, look for the institution, and the data should flow. Don't ever look at one piece of data by itself. If you are in fact going to look for data, look for it holistically. You should be able to put all the pieces together. This is how come you have people that give you weird statistics where they might say something crazy like 13% of a population commits 50% of a crime. Is because you're trying to keep up the institution of corporate America, the corporation of America, but haven't quite looked at the data to see if that institution's even real. See, because some of you think the United States of America is a country and don't realize it's a corporation. So people own the data, and they give you data without ever letting you look at the institution for what it is. They give you pieces of data, and then you're supposed to try and figure it out. A lot of you have one degree. I'm not saying it's a bad thing. Get as many degrees as you want, but remember there's 360 degrees in a circle. I'm not worried about one degree of knowledge only. I'm appreciative of it, but I can't act like everything is based off of one, right? So it's easy for me to manipulate what I control. But if I know what the institution is, then I look for the correct data. You said that's a definitive spectrum we run off of: complacency, not tribunal sustainability of life. Yeah. Right. So if I know what the institution is, I'm looking for data that institution's supposed to give. That's the way it works, right? That's even with your churches and stuff that you either came out of or you're still in or whatever, right? Why are you a Methodist? Let's make this plain as the nose on your face before we go in depth, right? And thanks for being on, Mactronics. How you doing? Right? Why do people consider themselves to be a Methodist? Methodists are started off of methodology. Somebody said this is the only method, and that's it. But what if they don't have things that are in this that don't match the holistic method? How you doing, Sean? Right? I mean, what if that's the case? If that's the case, then I have to say, well, that's not part of the institution, or you're missing pieces of the institution. Because I know what the institution is, now I'm looking for data, right? Let's go back to marriage, because I never finished the physical marriage, right? So somebody will tell me, I'll say, what are you looking for when I do life coaching, marital coaching, how you doing, Sister Rachel, et cetera, right? If 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 I say, what is it that you're looking for in a spouse, and somebody starts saying good credit, doing all this, blah blah, this and that, third, right? How you doing, Shun Ray? If somebody says that, what happens? I can see very clearly that you're not thinking about the institution of marriage. You're thinking about data. If your institution's correct, the data will flow. If your institution's incorrect, the data will show that it doesn't flow. Right? If somebody says, I'm looking for, look, and I'm not saying you shouldn't be attracted to the person you're with, but if you're, one of the first things is, hey, I'm looking for them hips, I'm looking for that Coke bottle frame, I'm looking for this, I'm looking for that, but you don't say things like, I'm looking for somebody who's already pre-qualified to be a husband, I'm looking for somebody who's already pre-qualified to be a wife, I'm looking for somebody who already studies in this manner, I'm looking for somebody who's already qualified to be a father. They do things in a fatherly manner already. So I know that they would be a father to children, right? They already do things in a motherly role already. See, so I can see you're talking about institution now. You're not talking about just data. See, if they are already a mother, if you marry somebody qualified to be a mother, if you marry somebody qualified to be a wife, if you marry somebody who's been qualified to be an adult female, according to their culture specifically, then you already know, because they're pre-qualified for it. That means that they're going to give you what they're qualified to give. Right? How you doing, Sister Sonia? Right? They're going to give you what they're qualified to give. How you doing, Jay Baby? How you doing, Spike Me Too? Right? See, if I look for somebody pre-qualified, see, that's why we cannot institutionalize data. Right? I'm looking for the institution. When the institution is correct, the data will come. It was years before I hit my stride as far as doing what I do now. Years. My wife, when she got with me, though, she said, I see in you a great man. I know that there's a blessing with being with you, right? And I saw the same thing in her. And so we didn't date. We already had in our mind. We were looking for a husband. We were looking for a wife. We were looking for somebody to have children with. We were looking for somebody who was going to have a vision. The vision was supposed to be vast and grand to be able to reach many. We were both dedicated to it already. So the data, even though it took years for it to show up in this brother, because I had to get myself together some, because I still didn't have it all together, but the institution was always the goal. If the institution of marriage was always the goal, I was always thinking as a husband, not thinking as somebody who would become a husband, or once I became a husband, then this would happen, or once she became a wife. No, husband, wife from the jump. Institution. Now the data shows up. Just certain aspects to pertain truth in this world, to love their self along with loving back. Right? Yeah, the foundation was true. It was solid. It was whole. How you doing, Pierre? Thanks for being on. Right. So I got to get to a place to where the data. How you doing? Praise y'all forever. I got to get to a place where I'm not only focused on the data, at least not data first. I'm focused on institution first. If you're still thinking as in a democracy, I don't care if you're Republican, Democrat. If you're thinking democracy, but you're trying to live kingdom, you're going to mess up because you got the wrong institution. How you doing? It's Pinky's World, and Dr. Knight. How you doing? Right? It's you got to realize what's going on as far as institution. See, this is why we have a bad conversation with a lot of this stuff. People come on, oh, there you go, get over slavery, get over the past. Slavery is an institution, and slavery still exists according to the 13th Amendment. Correct? So slavery still exists according to the Constitution. And in your mind, you're saying you can just get over it, it'll be finished with. But slavery still exists according to the Constitution. So if I don't deal with that institution, or if I don't know what comes out of that institution data-wise, then I'll keep, now what happens is what? I start messing with the data. I have to have cognitive dissonance when I won't deal with the institution. You see that? And it's that simple. Like, people want, like, there's an institution. See, you'll just spend some paper, some greenbacks, some cloth with a 1, a 2, a 5, a 10, a 20, and a 100, and never think about the fact that everybody on there is a slave owner. You're in an institution. How you doing, crypto? Like you'll do that, and never once think everybody that I'm spending is part of an institution. Everything I do is an institution. It's institutionalized. You think it's just data. Oh, I just got this much in my account. That's as far as you think it through. But you're not thinking about the institution. Every time that you see that name, that face on there, you're having a conversation within an institution. You're using a negotiable instrument within an institution. Every time. Every time that you take out a penny or a nickel or a dime or a quarter, right? Or a $50 or whatever it is, or a silver dollar, whatever it is that you use, every time there's an institution. Even when you have what's her face on there, Susan B. Anthony, who everybody loves so much. But Susan B. Anthony, she said, I'd rather give my right arm than to see a black beast be able to vote before I could. Hey, how you doing, her? Right? Like, this is institution. Sojourner Truth, who everybody says Susan B. Anthony and her loved each other and stuff. But Sojourner Truth had to say, ain't I a woman? See, a lot of you never read it. Let me say it like this. Ain't I a woman too? Because they didn't even want her to speak. But you know how our sisters are. She said, I'm going to come up there anyways. And I'm going to still give a truth. And I'm going to tell you that we're still not taken care of. Because she gave that speech in 1850. So it can't be that everybody agreed that she was a woman, but then everybody went to war because some people thought she was still property. How you doing, Blood too? Right? See, she had to say, ain't I a woman too? When you get a chance, read the speech now. Would that be in your prison? Right? So you're in an institution, whether you like it or not. And we can't institutionalize data. So you'll spend the data, not ever thinking to yourself, everything that you're using, what is this data showing you? If slave owners and people who don't like black people are on every single thing that you spend, you got to ask yourself, what's up with the institution that comes out of? Because now that we comprehend the difference between the institution and the data supports the institution, does it not? If I look at the police badge, and the police badge is still shaped in the same manner as it was when they were slave patrolmen, because they came out of being slave patrolmen, should I not say to myself, what's up with that institution? If people are still using iconoclasm, which is a system of being iconoclast, what does iconoclast mean? Somebody that's an icon, somebody who was known in our story, gets wiped away and washed from who they are, and literally they even changed their color in his story, and now we can't find ourselves in his story. You got to ask yourself, that's data. If somebody's doing that, and somebody told you had to be white Jesus and never Yashua, who was somebody of color, and then now all of a sudden we simply say, hey, we believe that we should listen to what he says about his own description, what Flavius Josephus says about the description of the Messiah, right? What the Roman Catholic Church says about the description of the Messiah, who hides a lot of stuff from you, and they themselves still bow down and kiss the feet, the Pope does and others do, of a black Messiah when he's on the cross. Then maybe we should have a conversation about, is it possible he's that? And a lot of your children don't want to listen to you on certain things because a lot of people out here in this system are trying to tell you it doesn't matter. But see, it mattered when it came to and I'm using a colonial construct or a social construct. I know it's not real, but something that people call white supremacy. Yeah, the institution is even, you're right, the institution has even changed what we see as far as wealth. Because wealth used to mean you were in nature. Wealth was something where people got along. Wealth was something where there was a community involved. How you doing? Is it Mubawai? I don't know if I pronounced that correctly. Thank you for being on, right? Like, we don't want to talk about this stuff correctly. Yeah, and if it doesn't matter, why can't we tell the truth? That's exactly right, right? And how you doing, True God 365, right? Like, we got to be honest about it, right? We got to be honest about this. Is that there's data. The data is supporting interest. Don't institutionalize the data. Look for the data to inform you about the institution. Hey, how you doing, Leo? Leo LaPowell, right? See, data can't be institutionalized. And we've been institutionalizing the data, right? Why are you a Baptist? Because we believe you should be baptized correctly. Okay, that's one part of the institution. That's within the kingdom. The data is what? When you get baptized, you're making a public declaration and a declaration of the Spirit to say specifically what? That I belong to the Most High. Right? That's data that we have. And now when we're informed with that data, you get sent into the wilderness to fast for 40 days. And then out of that, then you have to deal with, whatever comes next, with whatever you're going to be tested with to see if we can get some more data about how you act. But the institution is still the kingdom, right? And how many preachers go to school and never once learn about monarchy in school? They said people live a comfortable life rather than a horrible truth. Yeah, and even still, it's not even as comfortable as they might think. There's a lot of stuff that people do they're not comfortable with, right? But see, like there's an institution, baptism. So if you're a Baptist based off of data, right? If you're in the kingdom, if you're a follower of the way, if you're Yashara'am, if you're grafted in, guess what happens? Well, if I'm grafted in, if I'm part of Yashara'am, then I'm in the kingdom. I'm in the institution. I think one of the last things we talked about on, was it Monday? Yeah, Monday. One of the last things we talked about was Revelation chapter 2, Revelation 2:6, Revelation 2:15. It tells you specifically, don't be part of Nicolaitan deeds or doctrine. What does that mean? Right? That means that Nicolaitans are people that what? Have you in position of being lay people. How you doing, Sister Tasha? And they have you in position of being like forgive me, what is it I'm looking for? Oh yeah, they have you in a position where you're lay people, right? You come in, you sit in the pews, and then what is the Nikos part? Nikos is talking about a conqueror. So Nicolaitan is somebody who conquers you with the doctrine. But then they also say in the same verses I just mentioned, it says, don't be about Balaam doctrine. What is doctrine, by the way? Doctrine means anything that a group lifts up. What is Balaam? Balaam is, there were specific people. Now, this is Revelation. People keep talking about New Testament, Old Testament, all that, right? How you doing, user 239, right? People talking about New Testament, Old Testament, yada, 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 right? But if we're talking about Revelation, then your New Testament should be in line with dealing with what? You should realize that you shouldn't be part of Balaam doctrine. Now that goes back to Old Testament. There's really no such thing. Somebody wrote those in and now we argue about them. But reality is one testament. There's one group. There's one covenant. We lost it with Adam. We got it. We got access back to it with Yashua, but it's one covenant. It never changed, right? People are like, oh, it changed. No, what Adam was doing, right? You got to realize in Genesis 2, or what you call Genesis, is really shot bits, but Genesis 2, when Adam walked with him in the cool of the day, you don't recognize that. Really, technically, that should read he walked with her in the cool of the day because it's talking about Ravak, as in Ravak Hakodash, or some of you would say Ruach Hakodash. And when you're talking about that, that's the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit in Hebrew is always referred to as a she. By the way, there's neither male nor female in heaven. There's no marriage in heaven, or given away in marriage. So so Adam walked with the Holy Spirit. When Adam sinned, he couldn't walk with the Holy Spirit anymore. She could only hover like she did in the beginning before man was created. So she always was able to hover over the waters and therefore hover over the earth realm, right? But when Adam came, she could walk with him and talk with him. But Adam sinned, and now she can't walk with him and talk with him. So then Yashua comes, and now what? She shows up so we can walk with her and talk with her. Right? It was always the same covenant. It was always the same. It was always the same contract. It was never supposed to be different. It was our disobedience that caused it. Right? It was so. But see, when you don't know how the institution works, you'll miss it. The institution of the kingdom demands that you have access to the Holy Spirit. That's data. But now you got people that say, "Oh, over here we feel the Spirit more than they do. We Kojics, we feel the Spirit more than the Baptists. AME, we got the Spirit more than them. We got this, we got that." You're getting caught up on data instead of the institution, right? But take that back, right? The same Spirit is dealing with us in Revelation, right? Well, the same way is with the Balaam doctrine. Balaam doctrine is something where if you read your Old Testament, you'll find that there were people who there was somebody paid off who was a prophet who loved gold more than he loved the Most High and loved Israel and loved his position. And therefore, he came up with a doctrine to help people conquer Israel, because he knew if Israel ever got off, they knew if Israel ever got off track as far as following the law, then they could be conquered. Nicolaitan doctrine, meeting with Balaam doctrine. So here you are today, Yashta, Israel, black man, Moor, indigenous, etc. Here you are still today. And how you doing, Tony Mac? Here you are still today, having people giving you doctrine that takes you away from the law and telling you if you would just listen to them concerning what they want you to believe about the law, if you would just listen to what they have to say, if you would stop honoring the Most High and you would make sure you honor these presidents who set a new precedent, then everything will be fine, but you keep getting messed up. You said there's no denomination. There's only one denomination. You ready? What's a denominator in a fraction? If I have a numerator and I have a denominator, what do we have? Right? The numerator goes on top, the denominator's on the bottom. In order for me to add 1 + 1 = 2, we're speaking numerator. We're speaking data. Right? Is it not? Some people even call it empirical data. That's why we're revisiting this, because we talked about this before with what empirical data actually is. But see, and how you doing, DeAndre? DeAndre 7. If I'm speaking data only, then I'll miss what's deeper. There's to be an institution as the denominator. So 1 + 1 = 2 is something we say, but it's not 100% correct. It's actually 1/1 + 1/1 = 2/1. If it's not over 1, or if they don't have the same value, it could be 1/2 plus 1/2. Well, actually, then it even changes, right? It could be 2/2 technically, but then you got to make it 1, right? So the denomination or the foundation, right? The denomination, the foundation, the empirical, or not even the empirical data, sorry, the institution is what makes the data what it's supposed to be, right? See, watch this. If it's the institution of marriage, that's 2 becoming 1. So that's basically saying 1/2 husband plus 1/2 wife equals 2/2, which is marriage, but marriage is 2/2, 2 becoming 1. Did y'all catch that? Did y'all catch that? And how you doing, Sister Aliens? Did y'all catch that? Did you catch that? Right? If it's the institution of marriage, it's technically 2 people becoming 1. So it's 1/2. That's the numerology. That's the institution is on the bottom, 2, right? But on top is the data. 1/2 plus 1/2 is going to give us 2/2. But we know that when you get 2/2, it becomes 1. Right? The institution is the denominator. Well, if Yahshua is the institution, if he's the only begotten, if he's the one that's going to make this work, right? Then that means that 1/1 has to be 1 on the foundation of Yahshua. He's the one. And then plus 1/1, right? Which is the assembly. So I'm sorry, the assembly plus Yahshua himself on his standing on his own word is going to equal what? 2/1. We have power that we didn't have before when we were by ourselves, and we're interdependent, and it's 2/1. But then technically, it's still 1/2 plus 1/2 = 2/1, because we're supposed to be married to him. I'm sorry, 1/1. Sorry, 1/1 is still technically 1/2 plus 1/2 = 1 or 2/2. I know we're using a lot of numbers, forgive me, right? But see what I'm saying? So even your denomination has to be the same. If that's your way of saying hello, how you doing, Francis? If you don't like what we're doing or saying, then you can feel free to get us from somewhere else, right? But like you gotta be in a position, right? You gotta be in a position. So when we talk about denominations, we don't even think about you're dealing with a fraction. A denomination is is part of a fraction. Right, a denomination is part of a fraction. A denominator is a fraction of it. If I'm going to deal with that, then I got to deal with the institution. But now I got to deal with what? The data that comes out the institution in order for it to add up. But the institution makes it add up. It's the institution that's going to make this work. It is the institution that's going to make this work. Not what you feel about the institution. The institution is what it is. You know that, right? That's why you don't have to like somebody to love somebody, because love is part of the institution. Matter of fact, love is data itself, really. But if Elohim, if the context is Elohim is love, Yahweh Ahaba, right? That's what that means, right? But if we're going to say God is love or Elohim is love, then he's the institution. So if you're adding anything outside of his love, then it's not correct. And love is an action. So if it's not his actions, then it's not going to be correct. You're going to get an answer, but it's not correct. See, this is what happens. A lot of people are out here doing 1/1 plus 1/7 equals 2/5. And you just see only the numerator. You have not seen that there's different institutions you're trying to use as part of the fraction. You got a piece of it and trying to figure out why it's not adding up. That's why I said there's 360 degrees in a circle, but you got 1 degree talking to everybody about I know what you don't know. I know what you don't know. I got this 1 degree. Do you not know that there's other degrees in this? Do you not know that there's 15 degrees, songs of degrees, Psalm 120 through 134? Israel must be a compact nation. That's part of the 3rd step. Do you know that before you take 12 other steps, Israel got to come together? We try to do this thing with being out of order. If it had not been the Lord who was on our side, now may Israel say. Like, that's part of it. That's why they say get rid of that Old Testament. You see that? That's why they say get rid of that law. That's why they say, hey, we're just going to give you the little piece of data, make an institution out of that. We're only going to give you a piece of data, make an institution out of that. That's what's going on. We're going to give you a piece of data, make an institution out of it. You don't believe me? You send your children to school. Who created school? There's 2 people in the story of mankind that created your children's school. If you find out who created them and why they created them, you wouldn't send your child to school. Well, we were meant to be, see, watch this. We were meant to be institutionalized as far as the kingdom, right? And we had to be disciplined to be part of that. But see, lack of data, when we don't know what institution we're in, causes lack of discipline. So I'm with you, right? I'm very careful about words just because I got to, that's the way my brain works. But I want to say I'm with you, because it can sound like I'm coming against you. I promise I'm not. How you doing, Kingdom Building? Thanks for being part of the community. Like, you got to ask yourself, right? How was school, when you send your child to school, when you went to school, when you went to college, why was it created? How was it created? How you doing, the real Sergio, right? Why was it created? You got to ask yourself. See, in school, you get a bunch of data, but you don't know about the institution. Matter of fact, why do you go to your school? Why do you want your schools to be, what's that thing? Because I don't use it. And it was SOC University. We don't use it. But what is it everybody wants to go to? You want to go to a something school to say that it's verified. I'm sorry, I don't use it enough, so I don't really care about the word. But what is it that y'all want your schools to be not authorized? What's the word? Accredited. Thank you, Sister Irena. You want your schools to be accredited. Yeah, thank you, Brother Keith. You want them to be accredited. What does accredited mean? You never thought about that. Thank y'all. I appreciate y'all for putting that out there for me. What does accredited mean? How you doing, Sister Judith? What does it mean to be accredited? How you doing, Acoustic? So you think accredited means that it's better because you made an institution out of accreditation. No, you'd be surprised. The best schools in the world, and that would include the United States of America, right? But the best schools in the world, thank you, Minister Shrine, I saw you, right? They are what? You said basically learning correct? No. Accredited means that you are qualified by a government. Somebody governs what you teach, right? So Harvard is not accredited. Yeah, there you go, authorized practitioner. There you go, right? Yeah. See, Princeton is not accredited. Harvard is not accredited. Berkeley is not accredited. Oxford is not accredited. And might I go ahead and pat us on the back? SOC University is not accredited. Why? Because if you have to be accredited, it means that you have to actually lower your standards on a lot of stuff. If there's things that you feel are necessary, you can't even teach them. Right? I can't teach what I teach as far as our language. When I teach Avda, when I teach Paleo Hebrew and stuff, I couldn't teach that in an accredited system because they would say, oh, well, we don't think that other people would like that who are in charge and who are on the board. So since the people on the board don't want you to be able to teach that, we like you to go, yeah, exactly. We like you to go ahead and just keep that to yourself, or you just can't teach here. And by the way, did you get the degree that we said from the places we said? Because I got a degree, but it don't really matter to them because they're like, well, who did you get it from? This and that, blah, blah. Do we see it? Right. But at Harvard, they might be like, yo, we don't even care this person got a degree. Like, like we won't call them a professor, but we still want them, come on and teach this. They might be able to do something like that, just like that. In the middle of a semester, whatever, they might just decide we need to make sure that these children who are coming out of here, because guess what? It's about a institution. See, Harvard is the institution and all the data comes out the institution. And what is some of the data that Harvard wants to be able to get? Harvard wants anybody that goes there to make sure that they make money. Why? Because if they make money, they'll give money back into the institution. See, we're going somewhere with our society, with our community. This is stuff that's missing for us. You have to adhere to lower government standards and not create your own standard. That's often what it is. I'm not saying that there's no high standards in accreditation at all, but here what I'm saying is that accreditation means you can't teach what you want, or somebody gets to tell you if it's a low standard based off of what they say. Right, like when they say CRT has no educational value, they can do that because what? See, you're going to a school that's accredited. If you go to a non-accredited school, if you go to a private school, if they chose to teach CRT, they could because they don't have to bow down to that. Right? How you doing, Sister Latoya? And thank you for the love. Appreciate it. I have a chance to reach out to you, but thank you. Right. So I need you to see that what's going on with a lot of us is that we're dealing with an accreditation mindset because you're dealing with data. But see, they want to make sure their institution is free enough to be able to teach people that will make their institution stronger. Right? Harvard doesn't have to have, even though they have sports teams, but Harvard doesn't have to have somebody in the NCAA tournament for you to know who they are because they're free. But at HBCU is upset with Deion Sanders or Ed Reed because they're not going to stay and keep being part of a substandard thing. But we say, man, just be black. That's great enough. What are you doing to make black relevant? We're going to use that colonial construct. Right? Like, you see what I'm saying? Like, we should have our own and our standard should be great. What are you going to do to make sure that the standard is great? I don't look to ask somebody to talk to me eye to eye if I don't stand in a position where I can look at them eye to eye. Yeah, we've always been taught that it's a good look for accredited institutions, right? So I want you to comprehend, Thomas Jefferson started school systems the way that you guys use them in the West. Thomas Jefferson started that. How you doing, Sister Tama, Minister Tama, Apostle Tama, Sister Tama? I'm just messing with you, right? That's my sister over there, right? But see, you got to say to yourself, you got to ask yourself, and to Sister Tama's family, don't know who may not be listening. We appreciate all your, right? Be safe on your travels. Like you got to say to yourself, and how you doing, Brother Jeremy? You got to say to yourself, like, Thomas Jefferson made this stuff because he wanted to make sure that the overseers and the slaves remained down. Yeah, in society, we leave knowledge for jobs, right? You're taught to toil. That's what a job is, like Yob, or who you call Job. His name is interchangeable with toiling, but he toiled in order to make sure that he got free again. He was free, right? Was willing to toil, and then got stuff to be free again. We're told to toil so that when your body breaks down, you can't do anything. Right? But hear what I'm saying? That's why Thomas Jefferson made the school system. Now watch this. Later on, who comes later on to do even further damage? Rockefellers. The Rockefellers make the school system. Why did the Rockefellers make the school system? The Rockefellers came up with the school system because they wanted you to be in a position to where you were going to be great workers for them. And really, you're not even workers technically, because you know there's a difference between somebody who's in their job and somebody who's in their work. Right? Like I'm in my work right now. I'm in my work. This is what I do. I don't have to have a job. Somebody will even come on here. Well, you need to go. People do this quite often on here. You need to go, and why are you on here? And you need to get a haircut and go get a job and blah blah. It's like I don't have to report to massa. I'm that separated. I'm not completely separated where I want to be, but I'm separated enough. I don't have to report in. I don't have to check in. If I choose to do something as an indentured servant, I can do it, and I'm only going to do it for a certain amount, and I'm only going to do it for a little bit of time. You feel like you're getting close? I'm on. Yeah. Like, and the thing that they did, they used the school system to take work out of the work is not even in your vocabulary correctly. Once again, work you've made, see, watch this. You turn work into a job. Job is the data to see if your work is correct. Because job is toiling. Oh, there's consequences for sure. Right? But there's consequences you got to see if they outweigh. The righteousness outweighs the bad things. And for me, the righteous stuff that happens with my family outweighs it. Like my son, homeschooled, right? My children too, but my youngest, completely homeschooled. And when we have our homeschool reviews, the teachers be like, looking at us like, oh, can you tell me about this? Can you teach it? I mean, he knows stuff that they don't know. My son goes to SOC University too. So he learns stuff. He knows about, stuff as far as herbalism, herbalism 1, herbalism 2. He knows about Hebrew characters. He knows about basic Hebrew. He knows about Black history. He knows about the history. He knows about world history. He knows about our history. He knows the difference between his story and our story. He knows all those things. He knows language, right? He knows several languages. He's able to build stuff with code, right? Because he's not in the system. Those are things that he wouldn't even be introduced to. He's got to work. He gets paid. He's on a payroll, right? For businesses that his family has, right? But he only gets paid a certain amount to make sure that he still qualifies to be able to keep certain things that are going to be put in for him like a trust later on, right? Like what I'm trying to say is that, like, yeah, like there are consequences, but I looked at it. See, for every choice is an invoice. Do I want to pay for what's going to happen when I send him to school and he has to lose his culture for 8 hours a day? Or do I want to go ahead and pay what it is now and put extra effort? And yeah, it means I got to do this. And yeah, it means I got to provide this, and I got to deal with this, and I got to deal with this bill and that bill, and people trying to do it, and it has to be on me. And I can't ask for the tax return for this. And I can't ask, see, because some people be like, oh yeah, I don't have to pay taxes. Cool. That means you don't get tax returns either. You see what I'm saying? So I'm with you, right? I'm just trying to say, like I said, I hope I'm not acting like I'm against you. I'm with you. I'm just saying, like, yeah, for every choice is an invoice. Is a great point you brought up. So, like, I'm not tripping off of, hey, tax return, but at the same time, there might be times where in my flesh I'm like, ooh, it'd be nice if I was able to do this and that or whatever, and the government had to pay me back too. But if I do that, I got to deal with the benefits and privileges, which means that I come back into the system. I got to make a decision. I can't do the hokey pokey, but sometimes you want to. Ooh, I want to be, but I won't be. Oh, I want to. Yeah, like, guess what? If you don't pay taxes, then yeah, there is no tax return. But also, if there's no tax return, it means it wasn't taken from you in the first place. Which means now, what if something happens? Have you been investing your money and making sure there's something there? Did you buy some land so that when the next thing happens, there's always something. There's always a housing market crashes. There's always food prices are out of control. There's always diseases off the chain. There's always an earthquake somewhere. There's always a company that's going to let go of, 1 million people. You have to make a decision. Am I going to have some stuff in place so that when times get rough, I've already made a decision. I've already started living in a manner that's going to cause me to be greater in that. You said the school system is the first exposure our children have to the system, and we freely give them our children. Yeah, we sign. By the way, you sign for your children. When you sign away, you sign their right away. Right? You sign your right away. You signed their rights away. You didn't know any better though, because we weren't informed about the institution. You just looked at the data. Oh, you just need a signature? No problem. But we didn't sign that. You sign them at birth. Whoever's watching your child, babysitters, school. If they too young, military, I had to be signed into the military. Somebody had to sign. My mother didn't want it, but she saw that's what I wanted, so she went with it finally. And she knew that I wasn't really going to be able to bring in any money or whatever, but she didn't want me to be in the military. She had to sign it away. No, I joined when I was 17. You said, what about birth certificates and how they own? That's what I just said. Yeah, at birth. You got to sign it. Like, watch this. If you have a birth certificate that somebody just forced you to have, or so you have a social security number and somebody forced you to have it, if you didn't sign for it, it's not even lawful. But once again, we can't institutionalize the data. We think that the data, we feel like the data is the institution. Look at the data to inform you if you want to be part of the institution. Of course, there's a way around it. All a birth certificate is saying is that they have proof and documentation that you were born. Can you have proof and documentation of somebody being born without a birth certificate? It's that simple, right? Nowadays, can you take a picture? Can you take a video? Can you have the birth in your house or whatever place you decide to have it in, and have witnesses that are there and have them sign affidavits? Your child doesn't need a social security number. Matter of fact, they don't need a social security number to even go to college, even if you wanted to go that route. You know that, right? Like, they don't have to have a social security number. You can go ahead and get them a DS-11 form and fill it out correctly, and just make sure that you have enough stuff that's documented to be able to prove that they are who they say they are. See, when you know how the institution, and that's part of it, once again, is we don't know how the institution works. You said they send for your social security number before your child even leave the hospital. They don't want people home birth school. Yeah, but you could, but you can. You just have to make that decision. Once again, for every choice is an invoice. If you're going to have the birth at home, you got to go through the process and make sure it's going to be healthy. Everything's going to be clean. You're going to have somebody, a doula or somebody that knows what they're talking about, right? If you're going to make a choice, you still have to invest in it. I mean, there's tons of books. Meet Your Strong Man, is one that's simple. Tons of videos. Look up Yusuf L. That's somebody who I like a lot, but there's plenty of brothers and sisters out there talking about sovereignty. You got to make sure you find the right one. But see, yeah, for every choice, there's an invoice. So any choice that I make, there's going to be some donation, some tribute, some tithe, something I'm going to have to give at some point. But that's a great introduction. Meet Your Strong Man. But it's a lifestyle. The lifestyle. See, watch this. Is your lifestyle the institution? That's when we need to come correct. You said, do you provide the child with a health screening, blood work, all that? In a way, yes. I can read. Like, for example, I'm not anti-hospital. I just don't want my child born there. But if my child needs to be seen in the hospital, my child can be seen in the hospital. If it's an emergency, there's only been one that we needed to do that in. And I think they went to a healthcare provider twice, like 2 times we've had to do that. But see, watch this. My wife is a herbalist. Every choice is an invoice. So she's become a great herbalist, not just because that's her calling, but also because she wants her family to be straight, right? So watch this. See, you got to use the data for the institution. If we're not in that institution, but when we go into the institution, we know what it is. Be ye in the world, but not of it. Be ye in the system. The word world there, especially in the Greek, it means cosmos. K-O-S-M-O-S. Different than C-O-S-M-O-S, right? With a K, K-O-S-M-O-S. Cosmos is talking specifically about what? Somebody's system. Cosmos with the C is talking about the world. So if I go into their system, or the physical earth, right, the physical world, but there's a difference between the physical world with the C and the spiritual world with the K. So if I go into the spiritual world with the K, and I go there, I have to recognize they're going to need these things in order for me to be able to be in and out, right? It costs this much money. This is what it is, blah, blah. But as far as like in our system, right, before we even think we need to go there, I don't have to like stab my family with blood to be able to figure out what's going on with their blood. Right? Now, just roll with me. See, that's why we got to stop institutionalizing data. The blood work is not the institution. It's something the institution requires. Well, in your institution, do you have anything set up to where you can look at what somebody's doing? Do you know how to look at the tongue and be able to see when somebody sticks their tongue out? Okay, how white is it? Where is the bump on the tongue? Because I might be able to figure out where in the body something's going on. Right? I'm sorry, you said, but how do you know when it's an emergency when they are newborn? Well, once again, you look for signs. For example, if a baby is yellow and stuff like that, well, because of a lot of the food and stuff like that in the system we live in, a lot of babies are born with jaundice, right? But to be born with jaundice, you can get that out by making sure that mom's going to be eating certain things when she's going to get ready to breastfeed. Also, too, you can eliminate a lot of that stuff simply by making sure that you don't cut off the umbilical cord, correct? Because umbilical cords are not supposed to be cut off, right? They're not supposed to be. They're supposed to fall off. But you're part of a system that keeps what we call the afterbirth. But the afterbirth is supposed to be there with the child after birth. And if you notice, they'll check on your child on the table before they give you the child. They'll also check on the afterbirth before they give you the afterbirth. Why? Because they're going to keep that to sell that for nutrients so that somebody else can use the nutrients that are supposed to go into your baby. Like there's certain things we can put in place. What is the mother eating before she gets pregnant? See, preemptive, once again, are you qualified for marriage before you get married? Are you qualified to be a husband or wife before you get married? Are you qualified to be a mother or father? We should be teaching these mothers that you shouldn't give birth on your back, but you should give birth on the birthing stool, sitting straight up. We should be teaching them that before you decide to get pregnant, you should already be eating the vitamins and nutrients and minerals that you're supposed to be getting. A lot of people wait until they get pregnant and start popping them pills, but you should already be taking things and making sure, because your baby is going to be the best of you. You know that when a man ejaculates and his seed is put into the garden of the womb to meet with the egg of the mother so that the baby might be able to be planted inside the garden to be able to grow, that's going to be the best of the father and the best of the mother. Yeah, just as Kemetic people did describe this stuff, right? It's going to be the best of the father. It's going to be the best of the mother. So you want to make sure your best is what? What we would call that? We would call that being fruitful, fruitful and multiplying. You want to multiply the best you're about to give. You said, what about sickle cell or things like that? Sickle cell comes because of bad eating happens and because of the cell. If you eat correctly and even do some things as far as fruits and different things like that, you make sure that you're giving them the best of you. You can even heal certain things. Matter of fact, here's something that a lot of people don't think about. I wish I had thought about this, and you never know. I might have, a couple more children, who knows? So this is something that I think about often is before I'm going to have another child, guess what I'm going to do? I need to fast. And by the way, we're supposed to start our sun up, sundown fast today for those of you who are with us and are going to fast with us. Oh, no, hold on. What's today? Thursday. Tomorrow, we're supposed to start our fast, sun up to sundown. All right. I didn't say it the last couple of days to you, so I apologize. Been a little under the weather. So we back on track with that, right? But see, one of the things I'm going to do is I'm going to fast. Because I'm going to have my body go back to square one, right? Right. Some of y'all who've seen me before, I'm getting a little less belly and all that stuff. I'm getting a little less flab. It's still there a little bit, but it's getting better, right? Getting a little more definition back and things like that. But I'm going to fast, and I'm going to make sure that my body goes back to its best, right? So then when I do start eating and eating correctly, right, all that's going to be there is the best of me. That's all that's going to be left is the best of me. You see what I'm saying? So you can heal yourself. Do you not, like, a lot of people don't know the things that cause sickle cell, your body will eat them when you fast. Did you know that? Your body will actually start to eat those things if you just stop eating food. Right? Your body will literally start to eat after a while. The first 3 days are going to be like the roughest for you. I won't even say the roughest, but they're going to be really rough, especially for a lot of us because we're addicted to food. How you doing, Sister Beverly? And since a lot of us are addicted to food, that's going to be something that's going to be problematic for us, right? But if you can make it past those first 3 days, you'll actually stop feeling hungry, at least for a little bit. You know why? Because your body's going to be like, well, I guess they're not going to keep stuffing us. So I guess we need to make sure that we eat off of whatever we got. What do we have? And it starts looking for stuff like, well, and really this is what happens even when you eat every day. It's going to start looking for sugar first. Anything that turns into sugar or has been turned into sugar, we're going to eat that first, right? Then we're going to make sure that we start getting rid of fat. Right, and we're going to look for that. Then we're going to start after a while, and you got to realize pain is going to come in waves. It's currency. It's current. It flows, right? But you're paying currency for every choice. It's an invoice. You're paying, so the pain is going to flow. It's going to be in and out. It's going to be in and out. It's going to hurt some days. It's going to hurt some hours. It's going to feel like the most excruciating things. But then guess what? It's going to be some days. But keep on going, right? And you're going to even see after quite a few days, like maybe after you get to like somewhere in between 10, 15 days, somewhere in there, you might even notice that when you urinate, right? Just keep drinking water. Keep drinking water, right? Matter of fact, you might want the only thing that'll help you as far as even fasting better. You might, depending on where your body is, you might not want to use magnesium, but copper cups or something that gives you magnesium. I'm not saying take magnesium pills, but just drink it out of copper cups. It gives your body magnesium to where your body can actually eat. Magnesium feeds, was it 300 and something enzymes all over your body, inside your bones, all over your cells, etc., to help you to be able to digest. So what's going to happen is your cells are going to start saying, we all need to eat. They're going to start digesting and cleaning themselves out. They're going to start looking at other things that shouldn't be there. You're going to start peeing and urinating black stuff, having stools that are going to come out black. Right? Like you're legit. There have been people that I've known in our family that where doctors tricked us into being like, why did you fast? Why did you have them do blah, blah? You should have let them, see their stool is coming out black, this and that. And we thought, oh man, we're killing them. The reality was we were healing them. Like that's part of, if you're feeding somebody correct, you're going to see some really disgusting stuff that's been stuck in your body for a long time. Yeah, like it'll come out like stool, right? When that stuff is not always blood or this and that. Sometimes that's your body being like, it looks like that because it's really disgusting stuff that's been sitting there. I've heard stories of people who have had stuff that they ate, they went on a trip, ate something like 6 years ago, right? And then all of a sudden they go through something where they either fast or they detox, and they'll see it in the toilet and they'll be like, that looks like something I ate like when I was on the vacation. Right, like you're gonna see some stuff. Your body has problem with digesting and absorbing things and different things like that. Some people talk about gum. Now I don't know if gum always sits like that, but even gum. By the way, a lot of gum. Check your gum that you eat, and a lot of the gum is pork. So if you don't do pork, be careful about what gum you're eating. Right? We found out that my wife eats Wrigley's Spearmint, and that's apparently no pork, but a lot of gum is pork. Just for those who are who don't realize it, right? But you got to sit there. Yeah, a lot of people have pounds and pounds and pounds of stuff that's just undigested food, or even you don't think about it, but fat is really undigested food too. Sugar, right? Turning into fat at some point. But your body goes for sugar first, and then it's going to look for a couple of other things, especially if you work out. But then it's going to start going for fat, and then when there's no more fat, it starts looking for everything else in your body that shouldn't be there, and it eats it. It begins to eat the things that aren't there, or that shouldn't be there, because it's like, hey, just like if your body gets cold and starts trying to figure out, negotiate like what parts of the body aren't as necessary, your body starts doing that too. You're fearfully and wonderfully made. So your body's going to say, well, let me look for this. See, but because your body, going back to our point today, your body is an institution. Everything else inside of it is data. Okay, I see. Ketosis kicks in after 12 hours with no calories. Yeah, right. So your body is an institution. And how you doing, Black Cat 850? Thanks for being part of the community. So if my body is an institution, there's a bunch of data inside. I got to start looking at the data. I don't need to be probed and prodded all the time to figure out the data. My body is an institution. Do you not know that your body is the institution, the temple, in which the Most High lives inside of? Do you not know that? That's scripture, right? People be talking to me about the Bible. Well, read your Bible; it'll bless you. Do you not know that your institution has the kingdom inside, which means that certain data should be happening inside? You just don't think about it that way, right? Have you ever, you see what I'm saying? And so you have to have a different mindset. See, watch this. What if, and thank you for the love. What if you fed your institution correct data? That's why your body gets sick, is because it gets data that it can't deal with in the institution. What if you fed your body correct data? Or what if you looked at your body's data correctly? See, in your mind, somebody talking about, and I'm not trying to down you, I'm just saying what they've done to us, right? In our minds, we were taught The baby needs to be born in the hospital because how do you know if the baby's healthy? We need somebody else to help us to give birth to a baby. Sisters, I'm not trying to say this to be demeaning or anything, and brothers, I'm definitely not trying to say this to be demeaning, but this is really not our zone. We just there to help, right? And we should be helping along the process and even helping if necessary to birth the baby. But sisters, up until recently in time, you didn't need somebody to help you give birth to what's inside of you. Like, I'm not saying you never had a doula or anybody next to you, but hear what I'm saying about the institution. Like, it's your body. You were created to give birth. Why you need help from somebody else to tell you how to give birth and you give it incorrectly? I'm just right. I know I'm not a woman, but just hear me out. I'm making that clear. But I just want you to see how we've been institutionalized. Right. My wife brought this to my attention as a herbalist, as somebody who's given birth. Okay. So she meets the criteria as far as what our culture says a wife is, a mother is, a woman is, etc. Right? Somebody might try to disagree with this. If that's your culture to disagree, hey, that's your culture, right? How you doing, Blue Rivers? Thanks for being on. But so hear what I'm saying. You used to give birth just because you could give birth. Now you think you have to go where somebody else uses all types of machinery and energy that doesn't necessarily need to be put on you to be able to make sure that they can see inside you and tell you if what you have the ability to do within yourself works. And somebody gets scared on that. Well, no, because what if this and what if the baby's in the wrong position? But what if you have the ability to be able to know what's going on with your own baby? Well, if our bodies aren't right, we got to start working towards getting them right. And if our bodies aren't right, I don't know what your story is in this regard, but if our bodies aren't right, as far as what the doctor told you, then that's something that's there. Oh, amen, Zion. Yeah. There's certain things you should already have in place. See, watch this. Sisters, at a hospital, they're going to tell you to lay on your back to give birth. That's the worst thing you could do for you and your child. They're going to mess up your sciatic nerve and all that for the rest of your life. And they're going to, and once you have a little bit of pain, which by the way, pain is something that helps. And look, I'm not a sister, right? But I've listened to many different sisters. I've listened to my mother. I've listened to my wife. I've listened to my mother-in-law. I've listened to many sisters, many of you who've taught me things, right? I've been at pregnancies, even pregnancies that weren't for my children, trying to help somebody who didn't have a father in that child's life. Okay. It hurts to give birth, but pain is an indication that you know what's going on. You know that you should never ever be in the set. Look, I know somebody doesn't want to hear this, but you ain't supposed to be pain free yet. Not until you get to the other side. Not until you stand into eternity. Stand in eternity. Right? Pain is an indicator of what's going on. Right? Like when you're pregnant and you laying down and the baby doesn't like how you laying down, they have pain, don't they? And so they let you know, they give you pain to let you know, ooh, let me move off there. Okay, I hear you. And you move, right? You hear what I'm saying? You move position because you're in pain. Pain is an indicator that what's going on. You feel pain before your water breaks. You feel pain when your water breaks. You feel pain when you dilate. Right? These are indicators. You feel pressure when it's time to push. Those are indicators. Why would see so when they drug you, you said they wanted to give you an epidural 32 years ago. You said no, thanks. Yeah. So when they drug you, they're trying to take away an indicator of what's going on. Does that make sense during a birthing process to stop indicators? See, we're dealing with the data, but you're not dealing with the institution. Your body's an institution. If the institution is in pain, it gives us signs as what we need to do to make sure that we're sewing correctly. Yeah, you said you were feeling starved, and guess what? That's because somebody is trying their best to make sure that there's no. I mean, there's other reasons for it, but the real main reason for that is because they're trying to make sure that you don't, defecate on either the child, even though the child's going to be underneath the anus. I'm sorry for saying these words, but I mean, it is what it is. They're going to be underneath the sphincter, right? And they're going to be coming out the vagina. But here's something that you might not know. In your body is designed, fearfully and wonderfully made. You might not know this, but you shouldn't be fasting. First of all, when you're pregnant, you shouldn't really be fasting at all, right? You should be fasting from certain foods, but you shouldn't be fasting, right? So to have you fast, you shouldn't have fasted your whole time being pregnant. You should have been eating things that were correct for you, right? But then after that, right when it's the most important part, they tell you to fast. But this is why you shouldn't. You should have something that's being stored in your body that's going to turn into waste. You know why? Because when the baby's born, another institution, right? Remember, your body is an institution. What are we talking about today? We should not institutionalize data. Your baby, who's going to be an institution within themselves, is data within your body. You have this institution in you because institutions give birth to other institutions in our culture, right? If I'm a great institution as far as a teacher, they say, like in certain parts of West Africa, they call me a jelly or jelly griot or a griot, which basically means like I'm supposed to be a library. I'm supposed to be able to tell people things about our story, for generations to come. So people can know what it is, and it doesn't always have to be written. It can be dance history, it could be art history, it could be music history, it could be whatever, right? But I'm supposed to be able to give something, right? So and they say basically like once a jelly dies, it's like a library has been burned, right? So like I'm supposed to pass on stuff and make sure somebody else can hold on to it. Okay. So I'm supposed to hold on. So I'm supposed to make sure somebody else gets it, right? So institution that I have as far as knowledge, history, whatever, just like your institution, your gift, your calling you have, you're supposed to give it to somebody else and they're supposed to carry it. Normally it'd be within my own household, my own family. You said Dr. Umar Johnson says that all the time. Hence he wants to be open with his own. Yeah. But see, so marriage is an institution, right? Your body's an institution, and there's an institution coming out. There's data inside, right? That's coming out of the institution. There's data inside that's coming out of that institution. There's data inside, right? That's coming out, right? And what's supposed to happen is you don't think about this, but even your fecal matter is data. You don't know how to read it. What happens is when the baby's born, so the mother, whether standing up, right, whether she's standing up or whether she's squatting down, she's not supposed to be on her back. She's supposed to be squatting. The only reason why mothers put on their back today is because there were kings, European kings, who had weird, sexual deviant things they were into. And so they laid women on their back so they could see the pregnancy. And it became something everybody did. But the reality is you're supposed to be sitting straight up. And as you sit straight up on a birthing stool, they even have them back into the times of Kemet and of Yashtel, et cetera, right? You would have the birthing stool, and the mother would let nature take its course. And as the baby came out, there would be stool that would come out. The birthing stool actually looks like a toilet, believe it or not, right? That's what the birthing stool looked like. And so when she gave birth, she actually would have some feces come out. When the feces touched the child, data was given to the child. This new institution got data immediately that said, hey, this shouldn't be touching me. I don't know what this is. And it freaked out. And what happened inside this new institution that's born is something that you would call your immune system. It began to work. That's the way that happened. That's the way it was literally put there. Yeah. Like something was pulling the child out, and then something was pulling stuff out of you, because you might not recognize this, but the same muscles you use, like the position they put you in on your back to give birth, sisters, is the actual position that all of us should use the toilet in, because it opens up the cavities in your body. You should actually use the toilet. I actually have like stools and stuff where my knees come up. You're supposed to use the bathroom in that position. So sisters, when you go urinate, do whatever, a lot of times when we get older and we're like, man, this stuff is struggling, this and that. Some of that is liver, some of that is kidney, some of that is different things going on. Some of that is, I know what food to eat for. Why am I having a problem with this? The sweet potato. What do you eat the sweet potato for? Sweet potato looks like your pancreas, right? Some of it is those issues, but a lot of it is because you haven't been urinating correctly. You've been urinating standing up, or you've been urinating just in a regular seated position. If you go to, Eastern places in the world, you'll discover that they do what? They go all the way down a lot of times when they use the stuff. Matter of fact, if you go to places in Switzerland and stuff, you'd be surprised that like they just have holes in the ground. When you go to they don't have like big bathrooms sometimes in some of the places, stores you go to, you go and say, can I use the bathroom? You might find a hole in there. You squat. That's the, like they're okay with you just squatting. Right. So you squat down, not sit down, not do a squat. Like you think squats, right? We think squats are like, our exercise, we think we do this for a squat, right? But squatting is going all the way down. Right? That's what a squat really is. So when you go all the way down, that's when your body opens up, right? So, but you don't get. So watch this. You don't use the muscles that you're supposed to give birth. You're supposed to use these same muscles that you're supposed to be using all the time. Every time you use the restroom, you're supposed to use those same muscles. Yeah, just like a frog, or like a dog when it sits or whatever, right? However you want to look at it. I know we're not animals, but I'm just saying. But yeah. And so you haven't used those same muscles your entire life. Now you get into a birth situation. You're not open. Your muscles aren't used to that, this and that. And then they put you on your back. Now the baby, right? Let's say you got 7 pounds, 8 pounds, 9 pounds. On top of that, you got all the placenta and everything else that's in there. You got all this stuff that's on your spine now. You say you don't know if your knees can do that anymore. You'd be surprised. Start eating certain things. You'd be surprised what'll happen. Get some pepper in your life with some turmeric. Put it on your tongue every day, right? Walk a little bit more. I know you go for long rides and stuff. Walk a little bit more when you can. Right? Not too much where you hurt yourself, but walk a little bit more. You'd be surprised what'll start happening to your bodies. Right? Some comfrey in there. If you got brittle bones and stuff, make sure that you start slowly, fasting, doing some things, and then start, in the middle of your intermittent fasting. When your intermittent fasting is over, start using some bone set. You got to make sure that you ain't got no broken bones, because the bone set will set your bones. But use some bone set, drink some bone set tea, eat some bone set, right? Get some burdock root in your life. Get some. If you need some energy, you're saying, man, I don't feel like I got the energy to walk, because sometimes it's not just that it hurts, it's that you don't have the energy. Go ahead and make sure that you get some ginseng in your life. Eat the root. Or drink the root, But these are things that you can do, right? But hear what I'm saying. You never use these things your entire life. You've never used these things in your entire life. Matter of fact, and this affects your wallet too. A lot of you overeat. So sometimes the reason why we can't digest food is because we've never had a chance to digest. Intermittent fasting is not something that, we do it for fasting just to make sure that people kind of get a reminder of things, but also to make sure that they get their spirits correct, and also to kind of introduce something you should keep. But, like intermittent fasting isn't something that we should give up on just because intermittent fasting is done. Like you should eat one time a day as much as possible. You don't need to eat 5, 6, 7, 8 meals a day to be able to work out all day if you know how to eat. And even if you do need to eat something, learn that drinking is eating. Hey, how you doing, G? Like think about the fact that drinking is eating. So when you drink teas, that's eating. You don't have to have a whole meal for that, right? Get your body in the habit of making your stomach smaller. By the way, you don't just eat through your stomach either, right? So whatever you rubbing into your skin, you eat. You got to think about whatever you're rubbing to your skin. Do you want to digest that? Your deodorants with all that aluminum, you eating. Right? You can make your own deodorant if you want. My wife could make you a deodorant. Right? And it might be a little extra to be able to get it made, but it'll last longer than the ones that you're getting. And on top of that, it'll make sure that you eat. Right? Because for every choice, there's an invoice. If you want to be, I'm not trying to say you even got to go through her specifically. Anybody who has the ability to do this stuff, you can go through them. What I'm saying, though, is for every choice is an invoice. You might see they got you in the system, capitalism. Capitalism is a system in which politics and economics use to control trade and industry. That trade and industry is wielded by private corporations and not the state. You are in an institution where they control everything. Right? You don't know how the institution works. So you think because it's cheaper to get it, that is better for your pocketbook. But see, it's cheaper now, but your body's going to pay for it. Right? It's cheaper. Right? Watch this. When you drink, if you're somebody that can't afford to be able to go out and just get stuff made in glass bottles and stuff like that. You want to drink as little stuff out of plastic as possible. It might be expensive to you to go out and buy a big metal, copper, zinc, something like that bucket, non-plastic, but it's worth it for when it rains a lot and you catch as much rain as you can, right? And even if you catch the rain, by the way, or even if you get it, watch this, even if you take a hose, even if you take it from your sink, whatever, I don't care what sink, what tub, wherever you get it in the house, right? Hear what I'm saying? Even if you keep it, you know that you're supposed to keep it overnight. When you buy water from the store, it's been something that sat more than likely overnight, right? Right? Like so you've, when you get this stuff, when you pour it in, now watch this, even if it sits there, let it sit overnight. Then if you want to strain it or do whatever, but let it sit overnight, you know what happens? Even if it's the most and I'm not saying it'll get rid of all of it, but it'll make it better. Even if your stuff has all the chemicals in it, all the fluoride in it, all the chlorine in it, all these medicines that people have been taking, right, that they flush down the toilets and now they end up in water that ends up being recycled into what you're drinking today. So now you don't even have no problem with with what is it, but what they call being bipolar, and yet at the same time, like, you've taken medicine by accident for bipolar people and trying to figure out what in the world's going on. It's in your drinking water, right? But out of all that stuff, if you were to let it sit and then sift through it and drink what it is that you got now, it actually goes back. See, this is something that they don't tell you about what's nature, what's natural, right? Even if I buy fruit or vegetable, well, fruit really, right? Because we're talking about stuff with seed. How you doing, Michael Carter? If I drive and if I buy jacked up fruit, modified fruit, if I can take that seed and get that seed to grow, the next generation is going to get further from what was there because it has to go back to its natural intent. That's how natural law works. The only things that can't be patented are the things that the Most High has made. That's why every time that, now Monsanto's being bought by somebody else or whatever, but all these companies you talk about, like Monsanto and things along those lines, they force farmers to have to buy seed from them every year by contract because they know if the farmer just lets the seed happen again, they don't have that seed. They don't have the right to say that's our seed, and because it's not patented by law. If the Most High didn't make it, then it's not. Then you can't own. I'm sorry. If the Most High made it, then you can't own it. If he didn't make it, if you modified it, then you can patent it. Right? That's how it works. That's why it's interesting to me that people are trying to patent words. So they're now trying to they're trying to say, hey, I made up this word, blah, blah. They have to try and find a way to prove, even though they didn't make it up, because somebody had to speak it before you spoke it. But they're trying to say, I made up this word. So once you say, I modified what Yahweh gave as language, then you can patent it. Right? Yeah, that's the owns a lot of water. Yeah. So you have to realize real fast. You have to recognize very quickly. You have to say to yourself, okay, if I get water, can I make sure that I keep it overnight? See, that's discipline. That's culture. That's how the institution works. You have data. It's called water. In this institution that you're in, it's you get water. You have access to water all the time, but you might not have access to water that's righteous. Like, especially some of you guys are drinking Dasani, owned by Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola puts stuff in Dasani water that is used to dry out bodies when they die. Right? So they're trying to dry you out just enough to make you thirsty for their water. And then they put a little something extra in there so that you'll want the water. So you're like, oh, I need to have that water. I need to have that water. But you think that you're addicted to, or you don't even know you're addicted to Dasani. You like Dasani, which, by the way, is also in a plastic container, which we know is going to give you BPA problems. Basically, long story short, whether they want to say it's non-BPA or not, it's still BPA, meaning that it'll give you cancer. So you're dealing with a whole bunch of stuff. Rather than, it's safer at that point to go to the tap, try to put it in copper if you can, some kind of copper vessels, or a big copper vessel if you can afford. You go, that's expensive. It's worth it now. Go ahead, put it in there. Let the magnesium get in there. Then end up pouring it through, sifting it, right? Where you put it through something where it can sift through the water. The water can be cleansed, right? And then from there, you drink that. Somebody says that's too many steps, but it's going to be a lot better for you when you get older and you've had less impurities in your body. And now you got it in something that has magnesium in it. So now that you got it in something that has magnesium, guess what it's going to do for you on top of that? The magnesium is going to get in all those cells all over your body because it's been sitting overnight, right? So it's going to get in all those cells in your body and help your body to be able to function better and to digest. All your cells can now digest the water. So now you have a better chance at actually being able to drink. A lot of you drink water and you end up getting bloated because your cells can't take the water. A lot of times when you see people that are bloated, they give you all these, a lot of it's because you can't digest water. Did you know that? That's how the institution does it in London. They have witnesses. Yeah. Hmm. Yeah. Everybody doing so they're taking this stuff. Now London is a lot better than the United States as far as how they treat their food and stuff, but it's still not correct. Planes seem to get lower and lower every day when I'm back in this area. We have to check on it. Let me check on this, Sister Beverly. If you can give me a text or something, there's a lot of stuff I got to catch up on, but I'll make sure that we check on that. Right. I thought we said it, but we might not have. We had to double check. If so, it's been a while. We might have to get you something extra besides just that, if it's been that, right? But I'm just trying to tell you, right? Like you don't comprehend it. And by the way, now this is something when people don't even want to go there. But once again, see, I'm giving you data for an institution. You don't know how the institution works. Do you not know that you as a copper person should have copper? Some of y'all don't think of yourselves that way, but remember that the original definition of an American is a copper-colored person indigenous to the Americas. People who are copper-colored drink out of copper all the time. I'm just saying, right? Like we don't want to go, we don't want to talk about it, but there's a reason. Like you don't even think about copper as something because we're so messed up in the institution that a lot of us are still partakers of. In that institution, if it's copper, it's brown. If it's brown, it's not even something you think about using. I know some people don't want to hear that, but that's real. By the way, what is right? I'm not gonna go because somebody will say I'm going too far. Let me just go ahead and stop there, right? But see what I'm saying? It's different between the institution and the data. You got to know the institution. So somebody will say, "How can I tell about this?" Or I got to get blood work done, or blah blah. Like I can probably look at your eyes and be able to say, "Okay, yeah, you're dehydrated." Right? I can probably look at your hair to be able to say like, "Oh, okay, like it's strong or it's not." Oh, your hair is falling apart, your beard's coming out, you got patches here, blah blah, this and that or whatever. Probably because you don't have this, that, whatever. Like I can look at your tongue and be able to say, "Oh, okay, you probably got liver issues. You might have a stomach issue." Right? Like you're thinking somebody has to stab you. Now think about the cognitive dissonance one has to have to think that the best way to heal the body, the best way to heal the blood is to stab your vein. Think about the right? And I'm not sitting up here saying I'm a doctor or anything like that today, right? I'm not. But I'm telling you there's data. Why is somebody taking that away? Why does somebody want you to spray something that causes cancer to get rid of dandelions, but dandelions are the best thing for you in just about everything in your body? What's the sign you're dehydrated? I mean, if you got red eyes, what's the sign that you're dehydrated? Like I'm a little dehydrated. If you look carefully, like my eyes are not as bright as they need to be, right? Because I'm coming out of some stuff, right? What's the sign that you're, dehydrated? If you pinch your skin, right, and it doesn't go right back, but it takes a little bit of time for it to like settle back in. I can tell you're dehydrated. I can tell you're dehydrated if you're having a bunch of headaches. Some people say, look, I grew up with migraines, right? Didn't think about the fact that I drank soda all day as a child, but had migraines all the time, right? Yeah, lifted veins, So I can tell like when somebody like, oh, I have headaches and blah blah and this and that, and I started asking questions, this and that, and then I start asking, what do you eat? I can tell you're dehydrated. How do you know somebody has low iron? Well, first of all, for our sisters, a lot of our sisters, because food is not done correctly, food people don't rotate crops, things like that. So even if you eat things that should give you iron, you don't get it. But a lot of our sisters, you're going to be iron deficient just because you're designed to give birth to a child. So you need to have more iron. Now, brother, iron is not something that we create, but brothers, when we get iron, we don't need but so much. That's why you should have very few brothers, unless you're iron deficient. Unless you're iron deficient, you should have very few brothers out here that are eating a bunch of iron or getting a bunch of iron pills. Like in a lot of men's pills, you'll never see iron in it. You shouldn't, right? But you might be cold, right? Brothers are always talking about it's too cold in here. Sisters are always talking about it's not it's they always hot, right? Well, it's because that like we keep iron better. So if you make sure that you have iron, matter of fact, you could buy yourself an iron cup. See how metals work? Your body needs metals. You could have an iron cup. You could have an iron plate. You could have iron silverware, or touche, iron silverware, iron. I don't know, iron things to eat from, whatever, right? But there's different things that you can do. You can get iron from spinach, right? But a lot of spinach, once again, crop's not rotated, but spinach is something that's high in iron. If I'm talking about magnesium, we're talking about digestion. That means you need a bunch of green things in your diet, especially green leafy things. The reason why trees become brown, they told you in school it was just because chlorophyll wasn't there. But chlorophyll acts just like um, chlorophyll acts, or you can have iron pots. I didn't even think about that. Iron pots, things like that, right? But chlorophyll works just like melanin. So if somebody has melanin issues, is because they probably have magnesium issues, because you can't, especially the more melanated you are, the more magnesium you need, because you need things like I can tell if you're pale, right? If somebody becomes pale, we think of that person as being sick. Blood flow is not working correctly, right? That's just no matter what color you are. If you lose some of your color, we would say something's not right. Okay. Well, if I were to go out to the tree doesn't lose chlorophyll just because it's wintertime. The tree makes a decision that it's getting colder. Just like when you're outside and it gets colder and you start feeling your fingers numb up and stuff like that, and your toes and your legs and stuff. And if you're not careful, you'll start having to lose frostbite, lose your extremities, right? The reason is because your body makes a decision as far as it's cold out here, so I'm going to start withdrawing melanin, and I'm going to keep my body safe. And it starts saying I got to keep. Eventually, it makes a decision that the only thing that matters is everything that's from head to about the loins area. And then at some point, you ever heard that expression, somebody freeze their nuts off? Like literally your body will even make a decision like that's not even important either. I need my heart, I need my brain, I need my lungs. I'll slow everything else down. I'll act like I'm dead. And somebody finds me, whatever. Hey, at least when they find me, they'll find me alive. Your body will do that. Well, the tree does the same thing. It says, I know something's coming up and I need to make sure that it will get rid of even what its seed, its acorns, its nuts, literally. Like your body is acting like that, right? Like, so it will literally make the same decision, and it will start to withdraw magnesium. It will start to say, I'm not going to digest that much stuff that I normally would digest throughout the body. When it makes that decision, it will kill off the other parts of the body, right? But the tree has the ability to be able to come back, right? So then eventually it turns back on, says, let me put the magnesium back in order. Let me do this, let me do that, so I can eat correctly. And now I can start to function correctly, right? So it loses its leaves without losing its branches. See, if you lose your leaves, so to speak, you lose your branches. If you lose your cells in that area, you're not going to be able to use your limbs anymore, right? But when you're dealing with that, right? So you're dealing with a magnesium issue. So that's why I say, even for a lot of people, it's difficult. Before we talk about dehydration and all that, I got to first culturally, in our culture, we got to make sure, can you eat water? Can you digest it? A lot of people can't digest water. You don't let your water sit overnight, so that even if you're getting it from your tap, I don't care if you're using Brita filters or whatever, if you don't let it sit long enough, it's not going to be able to go back, right? H2O is going to become H2O. Like, as much as they say, oh, there's oil in the water, we got to clean the oil out. Yeah. But if you gave the earth long enough, like if we just stopped putting oil in the water and stuff like that long enough, the water would go back at some point to what it's supposed to be. That's the way nature is designed. If you have a bucket, right? If I put mud in a bucket At some point, you'll still be able to scoop up some of the water and drink it. The mud will get out of the way at some point. Yeah, a lot of people would think this is nonsense because once again, it's cultural. Culture is always what we establish first. And see, once again, that's what we're saying. Learn about the institution. Do not institutionalize the data. If you know how the institution works, the data will show up. How you doing, Sister Juanita? Right? If you know how the institution works, the data will show up. Right? So if you know how the institution works, see natural law. If you know how the tree works with how its hair moves up, then guess what? If my hair, right, as much as I might try to put it down, it's gonna come right back up. Right? As much as I try to put it down, it'll come right back up. Why? Because it's designed, right? As much as my hair is like a what do they call those? The weeping willows or something like that. As much as it might dangle or whatever, if you look at it carefully, it's actually parts of it are still trying to extend up, right? It's when the sun comes out, my hair will lift up, right? My body is an institution, so my hair lifts up to it. The data is there that something's going right within the institution, right? If it's falling away from it, then something's wrong. The data shows that something's not right with this institution. See, don't get caught up in the data and institutionalize the data. May I tell you this? And I'm one that believes in what we would call religiosity and also what we call science. But the problem with a lot of people, we've talked about this before in this platform, is a lot of people trying to make one separate from the other. Right? Like data supports institution. So if you're saying I'm not going to believe anything until I always see all the data have to match up, then you won't ever get to what you're looking for. If your whole life is centered on I doubt stuff until everything works out where I am can be the person to say that I have it, then you'll never be able to learn. You'll always be behind. How you doing, sis? How you doing, Urban Royalty? Right? Like, did you hear what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? You get what I'm saying? And thank you for the love. Appreciate it. Right? Like, if you're always looking for data, this is why empirical data. This is what caused me to go and revisit this again. I didn't know what I was going to talk about today, for real. To the Holy Spirit, she talked to me, and we started getting this together. But I need you to comprehend, like, if you're always looking for data, you got to realize that data doesn't mean anything without an institution for it to fit inside. If you're always looking for data has to fit inside an institution. Data, if you will, is people aren't going to like this word used because a lot of you guys don't know what we mean by these words when I say it culturally. So I'll try to be very careful with the way that I present these words to you, right? But data is more feminine and masculine, and institutions are more masculine. One can't exist without the other. They need each other, right? This is why when brothers and sisters get into arguments, right? I didn't know they were going to sell it for 30, 50 million. No. This is why when people get into arguments, yeah, your grandmother stood up when she gave birth. Amen. When people get into arguments, watch this. When people get into arguments, peep game, especially husband and wife arguments, right? You're dealing with, why she always talking and this and blah, blah, blah. She's giving you data. You're thinking direction. You're thinking institution. Institution gives direction for what the data is to be used for, but the data is important so that we see if the institution's going in the right direction. The data is the law, right? Law doesn't give rights, law protects rights. So law, the data, is protecting the institution. But the institution is giving direction so that we'll get the data. I don't know if y'all caught that, right? That's a lot of these relationship issues. She always talking about this, and she's always bringing this up, and what about this, and blah blah, and this and that, or whatever. That's why. Guess what, brothers? Right? May I give you something that'll bless you? Right? You know this, but let me just give you something that bless you. And sisters, you already know when I said, you know, Well, I won't say everybody's gonna agree with me, but y'all will probably agree with me when I say this. Watch this, brothers. The worst thing you could have is a sister that ain't giving you no data, because that means she done. If she not, you say she just running off at the mouth. If she not giving you any data anymore, she done talking about it. If she ain't saying nothing, that's the worst relationship you can be in, because it's this close to ending, right? Like if she ain't saying nothing no more, she's not giving data. I promise you, like you better find out what you need to do, or just be prepared to go ahead, pack up and leave. Because at that point, if she's not giving data, she doesn't think that you're worth the data, and therefore the direction don't even matter no more. If she's giving you data, if she's saying this is happening and that is happening, blah blah, this is this and that, what she's saying is like, here's all the stuff going on, but I don't see direction, or I don't know how I can use the direction that you said we're supposed to have. She's giving you data, right? She's giving you data. If she's not giving you data anymore, she's like, your direction don't even matter no more, bro. And you don't see it that way, because you think of data without direction. In your mind, it's direction, 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 right? So I'm not saying institutionalize data, but pay attention to it. See, I don't want to be somebody that says don't worry about data, right? Data is something that somebody who multiplies gives you. If you do something long enough with a company, then enough data shows up to where you multiply. If more finances show up, you multiply. If more people buy your product, you're multiplying. If you can say, hey, been around since 1787, you're multiplying. If you're a corporation that says we've been around since 1789, 1791, you're multiplying. That's the Corporation of the United States. You hear what I'm saying? You're multiplying. She's there to give you data, right? This is Miles Monroe, Dr. Miles Monroe, but I've said it before, I'll say it again, right? If you give her if you give her a sperm, she gives you a whole human being. If you give her a word, or you give her a sound, she'll find a word for it. If you give her a word, she'll give you a sentence. If you give her a sentence, she'll give you a paragraph. If you give her a paragraph, she'll give you a chapter. If you give her a chapter, you give her a book. If you give her a book, she'll give you an encyclopedia, right? Watch this. Same thing, direction and data. If she's give see watch the you got to watch the data. If you give her frustration, she'll give you hell. You don't want to hear that, but that's real talk, right? And thanks for being part of the community, Debbie. Right? Like, that's real talk, right? But right. So this is real. Like if whatever you're giving, we love to talk about Ephesians chapter 5, verse 22. You know, wives, submit to yourselves to your own husbands as unto the, or wives, submit yourselves to your own husbands as unto the Lord. But we forget about the verse that comes right before, verse 21. Submit yourselves one to another, and as unto the Lord. And then don't forget about two verses back there. In Ephesians 5:19, it'll say, what are you listening to? What are the Psalms? What are the poems? What are the words? What are the things? What are the songs you sing? What are you feeding each other? And by the way, submission, it's not called submansion, it's not called subwomanship, it's called submission. If there's no mission, then what can you be under? What can you be submitted to? See, a lot of you want somebody to be in submission, but never give them a mission. Congrats on your 17th anniversary. Praise God for it. Hallelujah. I'm up, right? But see, there's got to be a mission that's worthy of her being under, sub to. She's created to be sub to what she can multiply. Did you catch that? Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. Did you catch that? She's created to be under what she can multiply. She ain't just going to be under nothing. Right? Even in the sense, sisters that are just thinking about sex, 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 sex. Well, guess what? Sex is supposed to be marriage, and in marriage, you're supposed to be fruitful and multiply. Even the sister that does that. But that's why after a while, if all you got is sex, after a while, she's gonna run out too. Because it's like, well, okay, we done had the babies, I multiplied that, but there ain't nothing else to this. Okay, I'm out. And you start saying, oh, I'm gonna just go to somebody else. I'm gonna just go to these sisters. I'm gonna go outside my culture, because you don't want to be held accountable within your culture. At the same time, no, sisters, because I can't forget about this either, right? Don't institutionalize data. Because if it's only about what you can multiply, but you want to multiply without direction, you can have a child that you can have a child that's not raised by a father that's still going to act a fool. See, if we just make a deity out of the data, if it's only about how you feel but never about the direction that is being given, you're gonna have a problem. And there's nothing worse than when somebody has institutionalized data and it's never a happy house, happy spouse, but it's always happy wife, happy life. You'll have a guy that will go through the motions, but he's already done. A lot of men go through motions. You hear what I'm saying? A lot of brothers go through motions. And we don't even realize emotion. Men are emotional. When we go through the motions, that's our emotion. We'll give you love, even if we don't like the situation. Grand rising to you, Melvin. How you doing? Amen, Concrete Rose. One, they don't teach about this because they don't teach marriage correctly, because marriage is not considered to be an institution. We don't know how to read the data. We don't know the data of love language. Is that person upset because I didn't say it? Why are they always upset? I mean, I do this, I do this, I do this. They always want me to say I love you, but I do say I love you from time to time, but I do all these things. Don't they see as love? Well, that's data. See, the data for you is your love language is what? Your love language is what? Your love language is is acts of service. So you're talking about all the acts you do, but their love language might be words of affirmation. They're waiting to hear you say something. So here you are saying all these different things, right? And at the same time, you're saying all these different things, doing all these great things. Hey, how you doing, Jim Michael? Right? Appreciate you. Much love to you. Right? So you're doing all these things, and you're like, why are they saying that it doesn't matter? It does not that it doesn't matter, but their love language is not the same as yours. You're not reading the data correctly. Right? You're not reading the data correctly. You think that you have to like somebody in order to love somebody. You're not reading the data correctly. If I wake up and I don't like myself, I still have to love my wife, do I not? Right? Like that's a data issue. And if you're not careful, you'll try to make the data the institution. But the institution is marriage. Till death do us part. Sorry, that's what you signed up for. No, no, no. I got the prenup and I'm ready. No, no, no. Till death do us part. You're not qualified for this. And by the way, if you think that it's about a contractual obligation, then write your own private contract because you don't have to go to the state in order to have a valid marriage. That's why even in their state, they have stuff called common law. Not in all states, but in a lot of states, you have common law marriages. Why? Because if you're living together and sleeping together with somebody long enough, we might as well recognize the fact that y'all living together as one. You don't have to have the piece of paper in order to be married. But if you want to have it, make your own contract. Stop using that as an excuse and write the things in there to protect yourself if something goes awry in the marriage that both of you agree upon, so that when you leave each other, you can take that to a court of law if you need to. You said, isn't that fake saying that you love someone? No, because love is an action. Like is how you feel. Right? Okay. I might not have forgiven myself for stuff I've done in my past, but I'm still gonna feed myself. When I feed myself, I love myself. I'm not really, right? I might not like myself, and I might not even be really loving myself technically by bringing up stuff from the past, but I still love myself enough to eat, to exist, to go forward. Like and love are not the same thing. In somebody else's system, though, and that's why I said this is very cultural. Somebody else's system or somebody else's culture, yeah, that might be what happens, right? And see, yeah, but see, and without the data, you can't be accountable. Now, watch this. So, data accountability. If somebody goes through data accountability, if they look through your records to see what's going on, and they're going through the data to make sure it's correct, the data is pointing to whether or not the institution is working. So data is important, but it should never be institutionalized. The data should be used to see if the institution is what they say they are. Right? Love is something. See, watch this. Love is something that you can quantify. and qualify love, because love is an action. If you love me, what will you do? Like, let's go to this. If this is our system of accountability, right? Let's go to this. If you love me, what will you do? What did Yeshua say? If you love me, he said you'll do something. It's quantifiable. Somebody help me. Yeshua, or the Messiah, or who some of you call Jesus still, if you don't know who I'm talking about. If you love me, what will you do? What did he say? Right? Thank you for the compliment. Yeah. So if you love me, you will do what? You will keep my commandments. To keep is to guard. Your actions will show that you guard it. If you love me, feed my sheep, feed my lambs, feed all the sheep, right? Feed the mature sheep, feed the immature sheep, the lambs, and then feed all the sheep, right? And if you love me, there's some things that I should see in your actions. If you love me, if is, we got to see if it's qualified. How do we see it's qualified? You're going to do something. That's love. Achabach in Hebrew. That's love. What if you're talking about, even in the Greek, storge? It's talking about what? Basically, like brother sister type love, kind of sort of, brotherly sisterly type love. Eros love, right? That's erotic love. That's only between a husband and a wife, right? Phileo, Philadelphia love. That's brotherly love, sisterly love, not just as far as, well, okay, storge love is more congregational love. I said that earlier. Sorry. Storge is more congregational. And then you have agape love. That's self-sacrificing love. Every single word that they speak has an action that's attached to it. If you love me, where's your action at? Right? If you love me, action, where's the data that supports the institution? Because once again, the context of that is we're supposed to be married to the Most High. So if you love me in this marriage, then there should be certain actions that are there. So I should be able to call out the data. And if you are the wife, right, spiritually speaking, but even physically, if you're the wife and you always talking about you need data for this and data for that, and I need to do this miracle, and I need to provide this, and I need to rain down manna from heaven, and I need to make sure this, and I need to blah, blah, you gonna put all that on me? Fine. Then I should be able to ask you about data. If you're always bringing up data to the Most High says, let me see your data. If that's what you do, and I get it, that's your love language, that's part of how you operate as the wife in this relationship. Okay, cool. Where is your data? If you're always asking me for data, then show me some data too. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. So if you're a great wife, where's your data that supports it? Even before you get married. That's why he who finds a wife. So brothers, when you're looking for sisters, you should be looking for data. You should be watching their lives. You should be talking to their parents. You should be checking out their situation before you say, I want to become your husband. A lot of you just go on dates and hope that things work well so that maybe you'll have another one. And neither one of you even tells each other what your goals, your hopes, your dreams, etc. are. But if you love me, I should see some data. Thank you, Joe. I appreciate it. I should see some data. But then, meantime, hey, sister, that's if he's seen you and he's seen the data, right? He should come with some data on his own. And you think that it's about dating. You think after 5 years, we'll figure this thing out. It shouldn't take you 5 years to figure out if somebody has a mindset from the beginning of whether they're a husband or wife. You said, what if the parents are gone? You should have something set up. You should have some kind of system. I don't care if it's a spiritual father, if it's an aunt, if it's an uncle, if it's somebody that you look up to, but somebody should be able to look through the prism, the correct prism, and be able to tell you what you're getting into. Right? You hear what I'm saying? Like, but do you have the data? Do you even know what a wife's data is? Like, when you marry, yeah, the husband should be in his work when he meets his wife, not his job, his work. You looking for somebody that got job and credit. He should have a work. The work is what's going to cover you for years and years and years to come. The work is going to be what makes him wake up. The work is going to be something he can never retire from. If you can't handle his work, then you can't multiply that, because you can't multiply something that doesn't allow you to multiply what's not there. But you don't know his work, you know his job, right? He should be married to the Most High as a wife. You should be married to the Most High as a wife. But in his training in life, he's been trained that at some point, not only will he be married to the Most High, but he'll also have a wife himself. So he'll be a wife while having a wife. You'll be a wife while having a husband. That's a whole different mindset. That's a whole different mindset. Thanks for being part of the community. Is it Perez? Is it Jose? Perez Jose? I'm not sure I'm saying that correctly. Thanks for being on with us. Right? Right? So what is the culture? How you doing, Shane Israel? Right? What is the culture that you're in? What is the culture that you're in? It determines it. But you're about data. Look at them hips. You're about data. Look at them gray sweatpants. You about data. I bet you, she'll do this with them breasts. It's you about data. I wonder if they a freak. You about that. Like that's data, and that's fine. That's important. I'm not gonna act like there's no value to it at all, but you don't have institution down. You about data. What's his credit score? You can buy houses without credit. If y'all write out the vision and make it plain upon the tablets that whoever reads it, they can run with it, then you don't even need credit. Remember, credit is supposed to be that you've paid something in that you just taken out of. Now you think that in order to be in credit, you have to be in debt. That's the trick of the enemy, because anybody that's in debt is a slave. Anybody that's a slave is in debt. Why would you want to get with somebody that's really great at being able to go into debt? And then they teach you, well, I don't live by my debt. I'm making somebody else's debt. I have everybody else go into debt for me. But that means that now that person is a slave owner. They become a slave master. Now you look at that person, you say, I want to do what they do. Like, no, why can't you be righteous with it? you, you know what I'm saying? Righteousness is right lawful standing, right legal standing. Stop talking about how righteous you are or whatever, because first of all, your righteousness is as filthy rags. It's a period rag. You said you need a car without a down payment? Sure. Well, guess what? If you go anywhere and they use your social security number, which by the way is not lawful for somebody to try and use your social security number to identify him. But if you go anywhere and they use your social security number to see, this is how people don't know how to use data. You're making a god out of the data rather than worshiping Elohim and seeing how the institution works in society. You can go to any company, right? Or any I won't say any, but pretty much like 90 something percent of car companies around the United States of America do this. If you go somewhere and they use your social security number to be able to do a credit check on you, at that point, all you got to do is say, hey, I know you guys participate in a system in the United States corporation where you guys, by law, since you did a credit report on me and you basically like expanded my credit, you basically like forced me into a position to where I had to give up information that really I shouldn't have given. And it will probably make me look worse in the long run because of what you did. I don't have to make a down payment. Like that exists. I'm trying to remember on top of my head. I got it written down somewhere, and we taught it in sovereignty class. So maybe somebody who's taking sovereignty one with us is the last class. We actually discussed it in the first week or the second week. But yeah, like you don't have to. You like if somebody forces you to do that on a credit report, is it the Fair Act? Okay, yeah, Fair Act. Thank you. Yeah, sister ran into this class, so yeah, Fair Act. Yeah, so you can say, I know that do you guys participate in the Fair Act? Clause of blah 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 blah, and they're gonna probably more than 9 times out of 10 they're gonna have to say yes. And when they say yes, then that means that you walk out of there without a down payment. So somebody comes in, I wish I could do blah blah whatever. It's because you don't know the culture. You don't know how the institution works, right? You don't know how law works and the data that needs to be put in there to make sure the institution. If you're going to force me to do something that's not even lawful, then you're going to have to pay me back if I hold you accountable to the data that's disproving that you're not part of the institution. But I got to know how to do that. How you doing, Shabbos? I got to know how to do that. So the Fair Lending Act, Fair Credit Act. You got to know how to do that. I mean, I have the ability to use a VA home loan. I never used it. Didn't need it. So I try my best to get away from as much. If I can pay for something, outright or as close to outright, I try to do that as much as possible, for sure. Because then you don't got to worry about credit, this, that, or whatever. Like, why am I worried about credit if everything that I have is something that I own? try your best to own. And even though it's not really mine because it belongs to the Most High, I hope you get what I'm saying, right? Like, because I serve things to His best interest, right? He allows me to be a steward over things. Or even that, you don't make payment on your toys or different things like that, right? Or choose what you're gonna do. Like some of us, like it's okay. Like the only thing I basically make payments on still is something that I gave as a gift to my wife, and this vehicle, and that's pretty much paid off. Other than that, like I don't make payments on things. So I don't make as much money as a lot of you guys who are on here asking me questions about stuff, but I don't need to because my wife and I made decisions that even if we live by lesser means, we're straight, right? So even if we live by lesser means, we don't have to do as much to travel. Like at some point, we have to make sure the land stuff and stuff is there. So I'm coming out of pocket and some of that for that too to try and finish that up and speed that up. But basically, once that land thing is done, to where at least we know what's done and we can actually start doing some stuff on it. At least we have the ownership over to start doing certain things or whatever. I'm getting retwist when my vow to the Most High is done. But if that's your way of saying hello, how are you doing? Uh, and hopefully, my question to you is when would you like to say hello? And stuff like that. But much love to you, even when you're trying to say things that make me feel bad. I don't feel bad about who I am. But I appreciate your presence today. So yeah, like we have to get into a position. How you doing, Mars? We have to get into a position where once again, like what is your stand? And that's ultimately like what it's going back to. What is your standard? Thank you for the love. Appreciate it. What is your standard? Does your standard come from somebody else? Does it come from your culture? What is your culture? What do you guys stand for? What do we stand for? Right? What should we stand for? What do we stand for? Right? So what really happens is it's become a standard. Debt has become the standard. Alaikum salam. Thank you for being on. Right? What you see our standard, love in our culture is not being in debt. That's an action for us, is that I don't have to be in debt. And if it means that it makes it tougher for me to get certain things done, then I'm okay for that. Right? So we have to start teaching that. Like, watch this. Here's something we talk about quite often, but let me bring these scriptures back up. Why is it that you guys don't know what Proverbs chapter 1, verse 3 says? I won't even say you don't know it, but why is it that nobody really breaks it down? Why does nobody break down Proverbs 1, 3? Why is it that you've read Proverbs your whole life and some of you are like, Proverbs 1, 3? What does that have to do with anything? It tells you need to know about equity. He said, even if you have for tomorrow. Oh, I mean, you can fast with this as much as you want. By the way, on the fast, fast as much as you can. Some people, you're taking medicines, things like that, so don't hurt yourself by joining us with the fast. All right. But fast as much as you can. And if you're not able to make it through the whole day, it's a learning process. Okay. Um, but we're going to be doing this maybe even monthly this year, right? To make sure that we're doing this. We're definitely going to do this March um, going into Passover for certain. Right? You say 20 pounds down, amen. I love it. I love it, right? So, but hear what I'm saying. Like our culture, Proverbs chapter 1, verse 3 tells you should know about equity. Why is it that you've heard people preach about a lot of stuff and they preach to you about giving tithes? And I believe in tithes. I believe in offering when used correctly. But I believe in tithes. I believe in offering. I believe in making sure that we're giving and it shall be given unto thee. I believe in tithing your time, your talent, your effort, your energy, your gifts, your calling, all that to your community. And yes, sometimes your finances. But why is it that if somebody's going to have you tithe, they never teach you about how to make sure that if you're going to give 10% to something else, why can't you give 10% to your family? Well, when we're doing the fast, it's intermittent fasting. So from sun up to sundown, basically, if you want to go 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., all right, or if you just want to look from when the sun goes up to when the sun goes down, we're asking that you try your best not to eat, and then eat once, Try to eat where you still have a couple hours, at least 2-3 hours, usually before you go to bed. That way you can digest and you won't feel sick when you sleep, or where it won't be too much energy that you're still trying to store. And so you can't, because you technically should have digested the food before you go to sleep. And that way, whatever's there, now your body's fasting. So it's digesting only what's there, what's left, sugar, fat, etc. Right? But given and shall be given unto thee. But we don't teach people about equity. You're supposed to have equity. If you're going to give to an organization, should the organization not give something back to you? Not just financially, but should they not give you a way of living life? Or should they not tell you some things that are true? Or should they not help you with some things? See, once again, like, we're dealing with this stuff outside of our own culture. We don't believe in helping one another. So even when we give, we don't expect somebody should help us back. See, equity. And if you really look at it, Proverbs chapter 1, verse 2 tells you specifically that you should be into wisdom, right? That wisdom, a lot of y'all know what wisdom is, Proverbs 1, 2, but Proverbs chapter 1, verse 3, before it even talks about equity, it says a lot of you guys don't listen to wisdom. So if you don't listen to wisdom, then you can't be equitable. Now, equity simply, if I can make it real simple, is if you take whatever is being taken out your bank account on a regular basis, or whatever value that you have, but let's just do bank account. If you take what's coming out of your bank account, right, and add that, or basically compare that to what is going in your bank account, how much more extra do you have, right? If you have things that are coming into your life that take away, because it's currency is flow. So some things flow in, and for things to flow in, certain things have to flow out. So do you have enough stuff that's flowing in and out to where you have more flowing in than what's flowing out? Y'all see that? That's basically what equity is. It's currency, it's flow, a current. Can I explain it as mentioned in scripture? I pretty much just did, right? But if you go through Proverbs chapter 1, verse 3, if you're saying you want me to read it so that it meets the data of something, you sure? Right? That's why I said you got to be careful about empirical data, because you'll miss what somebody's saying, because you're like, well, make sure that I get it in the manner in which somebody else would say it. So how about this, right? This is 1611 King James Version for those that need it. Proverbs chapter 1, verse 3 says, to receive the instruction of wisdom, justice, and judgment, and equity. So Proverbs chapter 1, verse 1 says this: the Proverbs of Solomon, the son of David, king of Yastel, right? So David got this wisdom from his father. Fathers are important. Equity, okay? Verse 2, to know wisdom and instruction, to perceive the words of understanding. So you need to have wisdom, right? And instruction, and you need to be able to perceive what the words mean, etymology, right? But it doesn't mean anything, verse 3, if you haven't received the instruction of wisdom. You can know wisdom and not receive instruction. You can be married to somebody and never listen to what your husband has to say, right? A lot of people know it's valuable to be wise, but they don't receive the instruction, right? So there you go, same thing. So a lot of people know that they should have wisdom, but they don't receive it. They don't take it in. That's why later on, Proverbs chapter 1 is a verse 8. Let's just read, I think it's verse 7 and 8. Verse 7 and 8 is going to say this. It's going to say, watch this, verse 7. The fear, which means the respect. The fear of Yahweh, or you say the Lord, but there would actually be Yahweh. The fear of Yahweh is the beginning of knowledge. To respect Yahweh and the things he's going to give you, right, is the beginning of knowledge, of intimacy. So if you want wisdom and you want to get the instruction, you have to at least respect what Yahweh's doing. It's the beginning of it. But fools despise wisdom and instruction. So Yahweh can give you a whole bunch of wise things, but fools, but fools, but fools. I didn't write it. It's foolish to not receive what you know is given by the Most High himself. So verse 8, then right after that says, my son, hear the instruction of thy father, and forsake not the law of thy mother. My son, this is what David said to King Solomon, the wisest man who ever lived, said, keep this up with you. He said, look, I learned that a lot of people know that things are wise, but they don't receive instruction from the wisdom. They don't take it in. They know it's wise, but they don't take it in. They find different ways to discount it. So he said, look, it's foolish for them to do so. Later on, he says, so the respect of Yahweh, respect him. That's the beginning. That's your introduction to what? to intimacy. But fools can't even get to a place of that introduction. And since you can't be introduced to wisdom, you dang sure can't what? Receive wisdom. You know it's wise, but you can't be introduced. It's like, you know that Warren Buffett is a billionaire, but you won't do what it takes if somebody comes around and says, hey, I'll introduce you to Warren Buffett. But in order for me to introduce you to Warren Buffett, you got to do these things. You got to make sure you wear this. You got to blah, blah. You got to make this. You got to make this show up to this stuff. But after 6 months, if you do everything I tell you, Warren Buffett will take notice. He'll bring you in. And you'll be like, man, that's too much. I'm not trying to do that. So you will never receive. You'll never sit down in front of the person that makes the billions because you're not willing to do what it takes. And I'm not saying you have to do what it takes. I'm just saying don't be upset when whether it's Warren Buffett, whether it's whomever, whether it's, your community, whether it's building a community, whether it's getting the truth, whether it's getting the law, right? We don't want to do these things, right? So now verse 7, he says, that's the beginning. At least fear Yahweh. He's the king. If you want to get kingdom wisdom and have that wisdom be introduced to you, right? And you want to receive it, then at least respect him. If not, it's foolish. Then he turns around, though, right after that. If we do this properly, then what does he say? The same relationship that Yahweh has with his bride, Yashta, he says, you got to have the same relationship in your marriage. What does that relationship look like? He says that relationship in your marriage looks like this. He says, fathers give instruction and mothers lay down the law. No father in our culture, that's why I always got to say it's culture driven, but no father in our culture has a problem with his wife laying down law. You know why? Because no mother in our culture has a problem with her husband giving direction. You see what I'm saying? Did y'all catch that? Within our prism and how we see things in life, our countenance, our iron. No father in our culture has a problem with his wife laying down the law, and no wife or no mother in our culture has a problem with her husband giving direction. Why? Because they're both submitted to Yah. Hallelujah, Sister Monica, right? Achat, right? We don't have a problem, right? Because we're submitted to the same mission. We're equally yoked. She's supposed to lay down law. I'm supposed to give direction. The yoke is what is the only thing that's equal. We are yoked to the same thing, but she's supposed to give law. I'm supposed to give direction. And if we get that in order, it's all over for the enemy. He can't mess this up. When I give direction and it's based off of who? Yah. And she lays down law and it's based off of who? Yah. Which means now we have what? We are not fools. We have listened to we have respected the Most High, feared him, and therefore we can be introduced to his wisdom. And not only that, but now since we can be introduced to it, we can now receive what we've been introduced to. So fathers give direction, mothers lay down law. Now the very next verse behind it, verse 9 says this, for they shall be an ornament. A lot of times we only talk about the wisdom, but it says for they an ornament, or for they shall be an ornament of grace unto thy head and chains about thy neck. What is an ornament? An ornament's like a crown, or ornament's like a jewel. An ornament is something that's prestigious, and it should be a chain. It's something that we wear to where everybody sees it. So a child should grow up seeing things of beauty. A child should be somebody who grows up seeing things of beauty. Did y'all catch that? A child should grow up seeing things of beauty. There's nothing greater than a father who gives righteous direction and a mother who lives by righteous law. Because her law protects the direction of the father, and the father gives direction to protect the lawgiver of his house. The two become one. And they both do it because they fear the Lord. This is why now Ephesians 5:21 is going to say, submit yourselves one to another as unto Yahweh. That's the best thing you can give. You keep on going. The next verse is going to say, if sinners entice you, I'm not even going to go through the rest of it. But see, that's why you got to read your Bible. Bless you. It'll bless you through the right prism. The rest, it's going to say in verse 10, it's going to start saying stuff like, if you give, what is it? If a sinner entices you, tries to get you to come in, don't consent. See, these are lawful terms. If your mother and father, if your father gave great direction and your mother laid down great law, and they were based upon the direction and laws of the Most High, and there are certain things that they didn't give consent to in the house, then you're going to go out and whatever you were given, you're not going to give consent to that. You're not going to give to consent to what was put in your house. The institution of marriage now gives us the data, right? See, I can tell now with your child. Your child might not always listen, of course. Your child has the right to be able to make whatever decisions they want, but they're going to start making, even when they out there sinning, there's certain decisions they just not going to make. You know why? Because they weren't allowed to do that. And even if they wild out when they have children, I promise you, they're going to start doing the same stuff that you did. Be careful what it is. Be careful how you spank these babies. Yeah, you can spank them, but be careful that you spanking them or discipline them correctly, but not whipping them, because we don't whip children. Slave masters whip property, but your child is not your property. Matter of fact, your child is eventually supposed to be trained to break away from you and have their own family. Uh-oh. Yeah, so spare the rod, spoil the child, but they ain't say whip them. You've been delivered from the land of Kemet. Why you still building idols? Why you still getting together with your friends, being like, remember when mama used to whip us like this? Man, your mama don't know nothing about whipping. You don't know nothing about whipping. They used to take the extension cord or nothing. Man, you don't know nothing about that. My father used to hold us down and hit us in our chest. Man, that's child's play, man. So you know how many times I had to go to the hospital, and you don't even realize that you're making an idol. You've been delivered, set free. Your enemy didn't even make it across the sea of reeds, but you still talking about them like they still here. You're taking the data and you're trying to institutionalize it instead of realizing the institution that you're in should require certain data. You said, why do they still wear crosses? Nothing wrong with a cross. Before Yahshua died on it, it's a tav. A tav is a character, or a letter of the alphabet. It's the last letter or character of the alphabet, right? If somebody says marked on their forehead back then, including Cain, that word would have been tav. Tav means to have had that what you would call lowercase t put on them. But once again, if somebody's outside of the culture and they're thinking that they need to wear it because that's the thing that's going to make them one with the Most High, well, now you got a problem. But you can wear Aleph, you can wear a Bet, you can wear Gamal, you can wear Dalet, you can wear Hey, you can wear Vav, you can wear Zion, you can wear Het, all the way down to Tav. But once again, we don't even think about it. The average person wearing a cross has no clue what I just talked about as far as the characters. But you could wear an Aleph today. Right? People idolize a lot of different things because they idolize data, but they don't think about the institution of worship. Whatever you worship should be institutionalized. Now we can go somewhere. Yeah, gems can be worn. Not only did they talk about the 12 gems that were worn in the effort, but they talked about others like lapis lazuli. It tells you that's what the earth looks like. You can buy that anywhere, right, and wear it. You can wear obsidian. And nothing wrong with wearing obsidian. Obsidian, really any black precious stones, technically they draw out certain negative things that are in you and protect you from certain negative things. Right? Matter of fact, we should have never gotten away from those things. Matter of fact, when we wrote out like the number of a name, what people try to say 666, which is really 603 score and 6 or 666. You'll find that we wrote names out on white stones that didn't have color. We wrote them out on stones. So when you wrote your name out, so you would know the number that was attached to your name, you would actually write it out on stones. So we have this weird thing because of somebody else's culture, because they did all types of wickedness and stuff involving these stones, and they try to conjure up all types of spirits that they shouldn't be conjuring up. We've been taught by people who don't uphold our culture, who are in church life and things like that, in Cirque. They're trying their best to bring that over here. You said, are we to have the 7 candlesticks? It wouldn't harm you to not having the the menorah or whatever, but it's something nice to have. It's something that's there to remind you of culture. And it goes back to what we were talking about on Monday. So remember, like, if you are as much as people want you to believe that this is not true, I'm not saying for every single house, but let's be honest. If you go over to a Chinese house, you're going to see probably some Chinese writing, some chopsticks. If you go over to a Mexican house, you're gonna hear certain music. Like, matter of fact, I was a tubist for a long time in my life, where I played the tuba. So as somebody who played the tuba, guess what? I learned a lot of Mexican songs, because that's part of some of the stuff that's part of the culture. Not everywhere, but that's part of some of the stuff that's upheld. Right. So I know how to play those things. Or even if I'm not playing on tuba, I know how to play it on the bass. Or I know how to play it with my left hand on the piano, or whatever. Right. Those are things that are important. Those are things that are part of the culture. Like, when you go certain places, you're going to see, if you go to somebody who's from Brazil, like, it's not anything bad with them having samba music playing or something like that. It's something that you should expect. For whatever reason, when it comes to our culture, though, we don't have anything that expresses this is who we are. Right. We don't have anything that expresses who we are. Right. So you should have as much stuff as you can. Now, be led to it and stuff like that, but there's nothing wrong with having stuff that's part of your culture. Right. Like, if you go to Savannah, Georgia, you go to Savannah, Georgia, to the church that has cursive Hebrew written on there, like, that's your culture. Why somebody say you're wrong for what's literally on churches that free slaves started writing for themselves? Why is it that we want to talk about that there's a place where slaves were let go of by one of the five, families that's out there now? One of the family members in the group of slavery, once he got his inheritance, he let all the slaves go free, and they made a city called Little Israel. Why do we not admit that in the Bering Strait there's Hebrew characters on the bottom of it? Why do we not admit that they're in Cherokee land? There's Hebrew characters, and not only are they known as Cherokee or Taino, or also Tisalage, why do we not admit that they're also known as Anakitawaya? Anakitawaya, that literally translates to the people of Yah. I'm not making anything up. You can ask somebody who's Cherokee. you know, like, why don't we not admit that they're cousins, the Choctaw? Like, when you look at their original name, it breaks down to the people of the skirts. Why do we not admit to Christopher Columbus came over, right? And he had to have a Hebrew interpreter. And they told him that they had already seen Hebrews, they were already with Hebrews, and they gave them weapons to bring back with them so that they could study them to see that, yeah, they made by the same places in West Africa where Negro land was, Negro named after the Negroes that they started enslaving, that were Hebrews, that were in ghettos, who we now call Sephardic Jews today, that were in Portugal and that were in Spain, connected to the Roman Catholic Church. Like, so we don't have anything that represents us in our own homes, but you should always see yourself. See, that's what gentrification is. There's nothing wrong with gentrification. Somebody say, oh, yeah, there. No. Like, if somebody has ownership over a place, if you truly have ownership over your culture, or truly serve your culture correctly, guess what's going to happen? It's going to look like you. I mean, that's just what it is. Like, if you really have any kind of authority where you live, then where you live looks like you. The problem is not gentrification. The problem is that you don't gentrify, because you've been taught gentrification is bad, while the person that's teaching you gentrification is bad continues to gentrify. As a matter of fact, a lot of stuff looks like you anyways. If you know how to read English, or really many different languages, a, ah, aleph, etc., it all looks like the Hebrew alphabet. The first character is just the character put on the side. The second character is the character put on the side, the letter B. Gamal just is more curved than it is as far as, having straight angles, 90-degree angle. Dalit has 90-degree angles instead of it being, a curve and having more of an acute angle at it. For D, or Dalit, K is on the side, and it's missing an extension that goes to it. Like, a lot of people don't even know, if you're talking about chemetic stuff, like, the number 5 is supposed to have an ankh on top of it. You just don't know it. Right? So you'll write the number 5 the way that they write it today. And actually the Hey, if you know Hebrew characters, is actually very similar in a sense to the number 5, because something's supposed to be flowing on top of it. But we don't know that. So you write a 5 out, not realizing all they did was just take the ankh off, and now you have no clue that it's yours. If you write a number 5 with an ankh on top, see, but that's why you have to be able to do what? You have to be able to have a situation where you can teach your own children. Do you have a culture community where you can teach your own stuff, where you can homeschool? Because if not, they can't write a 5 with an ankh on it. Somebody will say that's incorrect. but it's actually very correct. It's original. For we wrestle not against, I haven't said this for a while. Wow, praise God. For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against what? Principalities. What is a principality? A principality is a place of origin. It is a kingdom. It is a kingdom origin. Gentrification, the data is not your problem. The fact that they took your culture away, the lack of institution, that is your problem. Right? Gentrification is not the problem. The problem is you didn't gentrify. Somebody else did. If you don't have a vision for yourself, somebody else does. If you don't have a vision for your people, somebody else will. I praise y'all for the moderators. As much as some of y'all don't like them, this is why. Because the moderators help to preserve a culture, right? They help to preserve a culture, right? We choose people that will preserve a culture. We live by a certain standard. That's it. Period. And if you don't like it, like it's okay to not like it, but then if you start being disrespectful in our culture, we don't take disrespect because we don't give it. You see that? Like that's it's everything we do should be culture. It should be an institution. The data should support the institution. You said, what did you mention about the number above? You're paying out the homeschool. That number 5 originally it had an ankh above it. Right? That's all I'm so right. But in your culture, in the culture you're in, when you send when we send our child, and look, some of us just aren't in a position where we have a choice. I believe there's more of a choice than what people realize, but I get it. Like most of us don't think that we have a choice, right? We think we don't believe we have a choice in the matter, but you should have a standard that you understand. To be under a standard is that's what understanding is. And a lot of us are so busy overstanding that we haven't ever been under what we should stand for. Did y'all catch that? I know I did a lot of weaves in there. I'll try to say it again, right? If you're going to, you don't have a standard. When you don't have a standard, right? It means that you don't have anything that you are understand. Because in order to understand something, you must be under a standard. But many of us have even been taught under somebody else's prism. I know we're trying to do to free ourselves, but you're trying to overstand something, right? To be like, I'm gonna look over it. But what if you're not the standard? Is there something better than you? If there's something greater than you, then you should always have something that you can understand. I get what people mean. I overstand it. I overstand. Well, okay, so if the standard of Yahweh is something you're over, then Yahweh can't be your standard. You get what I'm saying? But I see what people mean, but we're looking for whatever it is, still using somebody else's prism. But see, if you understand, if the standard is gentrification, right? Or the data is gentrification, but hopefully you get what I'm saying. If we're gonna gentrify, gentrification can only look like you if you're under who you are. Who are we? Once again, who are we? Church is not your standard. And people get mad at me when I say that. But church comes from the word cirque, which also is where the word circus comes from. Church is not cirque. Church comes from the word circus. Thank you for the love again. Appreciate y'all. Right? So if you come out of a circus, then don't be see, if we knew what these were. If you're coming out of a circus, then why are you like weirded out by the circus? Right? There's supposed to be a man that comes out in the top hat that's the ringmaster. Thank you for the love. Right? There's supposed to be a ringmaster. The ringmaster is supposed to do their job. The ringmaster is supposed to have multiple things going on at the same time, and talking to you, so that you think you. But watch this. As much as y'all think this and this and this or whatever, there's not too many things y'all remember that the ringmaster said. Right? I've been to a few circuses in my life. I can't really tell you the in-depth stuff this ringmaster did, but he got me excited. Or if there's a she, I've never heard a she ringmaster, but if there's a she, hey, they can get you excited. But I'm just saying, I can't remember what they said. A lot of people are in here telling you a lot of stuff. Your services, you run around the church, You dance, you shout, you do all this stuff. Somebody says, man, well, what happened in service today? Man, it was a great service. We had church today. Oh, for real? Yeah, awesome. And people don't even ask anything else because they're not looking for anything else. Or sometimes you'd be like, well, what did the pastor say? And you can't remember what they said, but you danced to the victory, right? You had them, right? Had them wings spread out. Y'all know how we're supposed to do, right? You had that left to right, left in front to right in front to left in front to right in front, right? We had it down. But how did that impact our lives? Yeah, like how did that impact our lives? Like what did we bring? You know what I'm saying? What did we bring from that? Like that's what it means. The word literally means that. See, but we institutionalize the data. We institutionalize the circus. So it's supposed to look like a circus. That's why you got people arguing about, well, they ain't a choir anymore, so it ain't of God. Well, praise and worship, that's what it's about. It's all about, I don't even know why you don't need no choir. That's data. Who cares if a choir is singing to you, if one person singing to you, if 5 people singing to you, if you got a tenor, if you got a soprano, if you got an alto, if you got 3 altos? Who cares? Who cares if everybody sings in unison? Who cares if it's a hymnal? Who cares? As long as it brings glory to the Most High, who cares? But no, we care only, we're talking about it as if that's what we're supposed to strive for. There you go, without the H, right? CURC, right? But see what I'm saying? But then somebody says, in the midst of you arguing about all that, somebody says, well, should we obey commandments? And you say, that depends. But if you love me, you keep my commandment. Well, what's really a commandment? But they'll argue you up and down. Y'all know I'm telling the truth, right? I look, when I first started going, before I even cared about going to church, when I started going to church, I was going because I played music. Even before they paid me, I went there because, hey, at least I can play some music here, right? And some guy was trying to tell me to go there, keep myself out of some bad situation. And when I went there, I remember the biggest arguments we would have every time I rolled my eyes, because all of a sudden it was coming up, what are we supposed to wear that Sunday? And even though I didn't have to wear what everybody else was wearing, I would be like, oh my greatness. Uh-oh, I already know what this is going to turn into. And we'd have to have an hour discussion on what people were going to wear. Like, y'all know that ain't got nothing to do with what the music going to sound like. Even somebody didn't care what the word was going to be. I was like, y'all know this ain't got nothing to do with what we showed up. We showing them to make sure that we give them this good old praise and worship stuff. We're going to make them shout. We're going to make them do whatever. Who cares? Like, at the end of the day, y'all going to be shouting so hard. Y'all going to be kicking y'all shoes off. Y'all wigs going to be falling off. Your perm going to be messed up because it ain't going to be relaxed, right? All that, right? Like, we're going to be getting into all this stuff. When y'all feeling this thing, y'all going to be hitting each other upside the head. Y'all going to be leaning over balconies. Like, who cares? But we had to argue about it because the circus, the details of the show must go on. You know what I'm saying? I remember, y'all know Mama and it was going to be sitting up there, hair was gonna fall off, was gonna be hanging on, a couple stuff that had it hanging on the head was gonna be holding on, and she was still gonna be, come on now, right? Who cares? If that's really what we're gonna do. And look, I believe that some great old praise and worship, like some shouting every once in a while, is acceptable, is necessary. Like sometimes we need to get that out. Sometimes we need to dance out of our clothes, so to speak, like David danced out of his clothes, the context, right? Like sometimes you need that. You need that shout. Sometimes you need to take it up a notch and not just say hallelujah, but go, hallelujah. Like I believe, like sometimes the tongues need to come, all that stuff. But I'm just telling you, like if that's what it's about, it is not about how pretty you look anyway. It's about getting that stuff out. Then let's get it out. You know what I'm saying? But it's about what? The circus. It's about the circus, right? You made the data institutionalized. Right? Like I can't even dance. Like I can do some basics. I can't even dance like that. But if it's time to go, I don't care if y'all think I can dance or not. If I'm praising y'all, I'm gonna praise y'all. I don't care what it looked like. I don't care how jacked up it looked. I don't care what's going on. Y'all might need to give me some space because I don't know what I'm gonna do. But the spirit take over. The spirit take over. Right? But if it's an act, yeah, exactly. If it's an act, and that's what our children be looking at. They see you acting. They see you. It's circus. That's why they don't want to go. I told you, like the reason why I even wrote the book, Does It Really Matter That Jesus Was Black? Is because that I had children, babies coming up to me and calling me on the phone. Calling me talking about, hey, Pastor Kofi, is it real? Like, if Jesus is black, we know like Jesus was black. So why didn't anybody just mention it? Like it's not a big deal, but why does everybody lie about it or cover it up? It's like the Easter Bunny thing. Yeah, make a joyful noise. Many people go to have themselves satisfied, treating choir music like the club scene. Yeah, that's because that's what we're doing. But that's why I even started getting into some of the stuff and speaking the way it was and looking for different avenues because I was like, I can't talk about this stuff in circus because it's not circus, it's not entertainment, right? Like your children know what's going on. They're very intelligent. My child, on his YouTube channel, one of the things he put out recently was it was called like Why Mr. President, and he was sitting up there talking about like why is it the president keeps things secrets, why do they do things in private but they never tell us things in public, like why does the president want us to be against this or whatever, why does the president hurt people that he wants to do, why didn't the president feed people, why didn't he make food, like this is a child, this is a 7-year-old, you know what I'm saying. I heard that he didn't. I wish y'all. I wish I could have presented because I had to redo it when we were somewhere else. We were going fishing and stuff and spending some family time together. But this is a little. So he didn't even say what he really said the first time. But there's a little baby out here saying why. Why is this? Why is that? Why are we dependent on this? Why are we dependent? Why don't people do this? Like he has another thing I didn't even realize. Now we got to redo that. It was something we did like when he was 5 or 6. But he put on there when he was talking about what love really is. But I realized I went back to listen to it. It's so windy. I thought it was better than sound quality. So at some point we had to redo that. But I mean, these babies, they're paying attention, right? And they want truth. And sometimes we get so tired of them. Once again, we get tired of the data. They throw a bunch of data at you. Why? Why? And sometimes we just go, man, whatever. Just because I said so. No, like how you treat that data as far as the institution. See, they're asking about the institution. Dad, why is it that you and mom argued last night? It's none of your business, blah, blah, blah. Maybe they don't need to know all the business, but hey, they heard some of it. So you might want to address that, Playboy. You know what I'm saying? You might want to let them know. Because they're talking about the institution of marriage. And how you answer this question now at 5 years old, believe it or not, when they become 55, it's going to mean something to them in their marriage. Well, you know what? Even if I wasn't right, some of the things I don't think is you should have heard. Number one, so I apologize to you for that. Number two, I should have never really raised my voice at your mom in that way. And really, I wasn't really raising my voice, but I can see why you thought I yelled because as a man, my voice carries. So I want you to know I really wasn't yelling at her, but I could see even how she might feel that way or whatever. I actually apologized to her. Things are okay. We were able to make up for it and things like that. But I shouldn't have done it. That was a bad example. This is what I should have done, and this is what I will do from this point on. Like how you talk to that boy now, it's gonna be how he's gonna talk to his wife. Whatever constitution, whatever institution, whatever culture that you're gonna put in right now, like you better make sure because they catching it. Mom, I've been talking to boys at school. They say there's no way that I could have this many uncles because everybody would be coming over the house. It's Uncle so and so. If the shoe fits, wear it. If it don't, take it off. Okay, I know not everybody doing it. I'm just saying they know. You send them to school. School's gonna tell them about sex. Do you have sex ed set up? Does your sex ed start off with sex is marriage, marriage is sex? I'm just because they're gonna learn from somebody. I learned about sex from people at school. I learned about sex from listening to music. Then all it took was found my first triple X video, 9 years old. Didn't even know what to do, but found it astounding. That took me into my 30s, my early 30s, basically right after I turned 30. It took me that long. I've lived more of my life. I'm 40 years old. I went from 9 to 30, right? That's 2020. Hold on. 2010. Yeah. That's 21 years of my 40 years to where it was on and popping. Sexual impurity. Remember, that's what porneia in the Greek is actually means fornication. Fornication is a false sense of marriage. I've lived more of my life with a false sense of marriage in my head. Right? I found that in my father's stuff. And then when my father found out, because I was sitting up there trying to be slick and trying to print out some pictures that I can go ahead and whatever to, he saw it. I tried to lie and say I got it for some friends. Guess what my father, he didn't have a conversation. He laughed and he left. Why? Because in my father's mind, that's what boys do. So that became most of my life, having the wrong image of marriage in my head. Like this stuff is serious, right? You saw the data. You know the institution of marriage should be greater than that. But I saw the data. The data became my institution, where I had to give more of that. I had to give more effort to that than even to my own family. That became an addiction. I became addicted to the data instead of addicted. Not really, I shouldn't even be addicted to the institution. I became addicted to the data rather than making sure I lived up to the institution. That was my goal. When you make the data, when you institutionalize the data, that's when you become institutionalized by the wrong thing. And people don't want to hear that. People don't like to hear that, but it's the truth. Right? That's why even when we're trying to make sure, hey, people are going to call you up that aren't going to be me, right? And we're going to have meetups and I might not be there and this and that or whatever. We're trying to get everybody to come together, even in different platforms. Why? Because I'm just data, right? I don't mind being halat or what we call pastor and making sure I'm mara and the teacher and all that stuff. Yes, I feel well for all those things that I live what it is that I've been called to. And thank you for the love, right? But at the end of the day, I'm not the end all be all of nothing. I'm just data. Don't make an institution out of Kofi ever. There's going to be something that I'm going to do that's going to make you upset. There's going to be something that my wife does that might make you upset. There's going to be something that my child might do that will make you upset. There's going to be something that somebody on the ministerial staff that might do that might make you upset. There will be some, like we are human beings. There'll be stuff. There'll be stuff that you. There'll be stuff that you. Right? Hear what I'm saying? There'll be stuff that you will do that will make us frustrated and upset. It doesn't mean that we don't keep moving forward. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that we don't forgive. May I give you a principle, right? Even in that, I haven't talked about this in a while, so it might be new to some of you. We have assemblies all over the place. We don't really, we're like assembly without walls or a church without walls, so to speak, right? But we have many different people all over the place, and we do a lot of stuff together, whether virtually, and we're trying to get into the habit of doing more physically. We've been doing more the last couple of years. But watch this. Even when it comes to forgiveness, right? You know that you can forgive somebody without them having to say, I'm sorry, because forgiveness is not reactionary. Forgive. Before somebody does it, I give them the right to do it. Before somebody does something a human being would do and fall short, I give them the right to do it. Watch this. Peter, you had to be said, get behind me, the Satan. Peter, cut off an ear. Yeshua said, that's not what we're here to do. Peter, you denied me 3 times before the cock crowed. Right? Y'all tell me in scripture, when did Peter ever say, I'm sorry? That's going to mess with some of you. This is why forgiveness is hard, because you think forgiveness is reaction. I'm not going to forgive him until, no, you forgive, right? But then you got to build up trust. When they say, I'm sorry, in a manner which is you're able to accept, then that helps you to start building up trust. And you got to start putting things in place for them to build up that trust, like we were talking about on Monday, right? But watch this. Peter never said, I'm sorry, but Peter was forgiven. Hallelujah. Oh, you're going to get this word. You're going to get every piece of this thing. You're going to learn today. It's been a little minute. right? But you're going to get this today, right? Before we take our lead. Peter never said, you show me where Peter said, I'm sorry. Somebody mentioned the scripture earlier, but we're going to go back to the scripture. Peter never said, I'm sorry. Did he? He never said, I apologize. He never said, Yashua, this is why I did what I did. Maybe he did, but we don't have it recorded anywhere, whether it's the 66 books or otherwise. We don't have this recorded anywhere, right? But Peter never broke it down to Yashua and told him what he did. What happens with Yashua? What happens though? Because they address it, but he never says, I'm sorry. But they address it because Yashua deals with, I need to rebuild trust. He had already forgiven him. He forgave everybody on the cross. So whatever Peter did was forgiven on the cross. Was it not? See, you got to be, it was forgiven. It was forgiven. Just because Peter didn't repent, but it didn't mean he wasn't forgiven. Oh, wow. See, your sin can be forgiven, but repentance brings you back into connection. So you got to be forgiven before repentance can even happen. So some of y'all are having it hard for people to repent because you won't forgive. Come on now. Some of you guys are having a hard time allowing people to repent, to regain trust, to turn away because they're trying to repent and come back into relationship, but you haven't even allowed it to happen because you're going to hold them accountable. You're going to hold them accountable for stuff that you won't even hold yourself accountable for. You don't want anybody to forgive you for what you did, but you dang sure not going to relinquish your hold over somebody else. But watch this. Yashua, he dealt with it. This is how he dealt with it. You ready? Hallelujah. Woo. I'm feeling it. I know I'm not feeling all the way back yet, but I'm feeling this in my spirit. I wish I could manifest it a little better, but I'm feeling it, right? Okay, watch this. Watch this. You ready? He deals with it. They sitting out there fishing, can't catch anything. Yashua never stopped being who he was. Hello, how are you doing? Please forgive me. I don't know if that's Chinese or Japanese or if something else, Taiwanese, Cambodian, whatever. I'm not sure, but thank you for being on. I appreciate you, right? So watch this. Watch this. Peter's out there trying to fish. He done gave up. He's like, well, Yashua's gone. I ain't seen him come back. Might as well do what I do. So he goes back and starts fishing. He was supposed to be fisherman of men. He goes back into the water, but it ain't working. He's trying to go back into what he used to do, but he needs to, because he's afraid. Look, he walked it for 3.5 years. His marriage and everything was put to the side, all that. And then he saw the Messiah die. He knew he was supposed to come back into connection, but he was like, he saw him die. Man, I mean, it's tough pill for me. He saw somebody get resurrected in his presence. He saw his mother-in-law get healed. But still, he's like, it's been 3 days, man. Even though Lazarus was dead for 4 days. Not 4, but 4, right? He was dead for 4 days. And he still said, no, I can't see it. So he says, I'm going to go back to what I used to do, but he can't catch any fish. Hear what I'm about to say. See, somebody who hasn't repented because they feel like they haven't been forgiven, they try to go back to something. So you think you're going to help them by not forgiving them, right? But you actually cause them to go back into the stuff that wasn't working in the first place. He tries to go back to something he did his whole life, but this time he's not getting any kind of, he can't get anything out of it. He can't catch any fish. He's supposed to be a fisherman of men, but he done gave up on it because he's trying to go right back to where he was. Right? He done gave up because the data shows him the institution can't be correct. The Messiah's gone. The institution must have failed. The kingdom must not be what it is. Let me go right back to the data. But now I'm trying to go back to where the data is. I can't even get any data out of it. What's going on? I'm trying to pull. I'm trying to get. This is what I used to do. This is what I used to do for a living before I became a fisherman of men. This is what I did. This is what qualified me. I thought. What's going on? Disciples are out there with him. They can't get anything out of it. They try. Yeah, no fruit out of it, right? And then I say hello, Sister Shima. I don't know if I did, but hello, right? And they can't get anything out of it. They trying, and they're trying, and they're trying, and then all of a sudden, Yashua is sitting there. They don't know it's him. They just hear a voice. Hey, go ahead and try it on the other side. Now they've done it already, and Peter's like, I'm a fisherman. How you doing, Sataria? Right? All right, I'm on. Praise y'all for the Holy Spirit, right? But he's like, well, whatever. Something about this voice. They don't even know it's Yashua yet, but something about that voice, they follow it. So he goes in on the other side, and then they start seeing the fish. And then out of nowhere, Peter begins to realize, wait a minute, I think that's Yashua. How you doing, babe? My wife is on the Honorable Mind. Check her out on TikTok, YouTube, website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish. Not A and D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, a biologist by degree. Thank you for being on, babe. I love you very much. So they say, so he's trying to go back into what he used to do, but he can't get what's supposed to happen out of it. But then he says, wait a minute, I think that's Yashua. And Yashua doesn't change his position on anything, even though Peter hasn't asked for forgiveness. Yashua already forgave it. Peter had tried to go back into what he was supposed to, and when Peter realized it was a Messiah, he started running to him. He repented. He dropped what he knew, and he kept on going. It said the other disciples had to drag the fish in. Peter had already decided to get his clothes back on and everything and try and get up to get back to Yashua. He had repented. He could repent because Yashua never changed his position. He had forgiven them, and he had already decided when he came back that you were forgiven. Then they start eating together, right? They start having the fish. There's the fish, the little fish sandwiches they have it and everything, right? Just like they did before he had died and given up the ghost, right? And they had some fish and some bread, and they had fed thousands. They having the same kind of thing, but now it's more intimate because these disciples are always more intimate. They have more intimate relationship. Even it's right. So now here they come back to the very person that he was like, man, like, I'm gonna try and go back to what I used to do because there's no way I can keep doing what I am without Yashua being there every step of the way. And Yashua asked him a question. Somebody had brought this up earlier. He starts asking him questions, right? And his questions are basically like this. He says, Peter. Peter says, yea, Lord. He says, do you love me more than these? In other words, I'm feeding you fish. And can you imagine fish made by the Messiah, what they would have tasted like? Man, but he says, Peter, he says, look, this is the greatest fish you've ever had in your life. And you were a fisherman, so you know the quality of fish, the way it's caught, all this stuff. He said, but do you love me more than what you were trying to go back to now that you're repentant and you say you're coming back? Watch this. See, you think that forgiveness is happening there. Forgiveness had already happened on the cross, correct? Right? Forgiveness had already happened on the cross. You catch this? So now it's about rebuilding trust. Peter, you haven't forgiven yourself, but I forgave you, and you don't trust what I'm saying about you. You don't trust that I told you that the Holy Spirit revealed to you who I was. You don't trust that once the cock crowed, that you would ever be able to go back to what it is that I told you were a fisherman of men. You don't trust that you don't have to come back, that you don't have to go back to what you were, rather you could come back to me every time. Just repent. So Peter, let's have a conversation real quick. Do you love me more than these fish you're eating? Yea, Lord, I love you. I love you, yeah. I mean, you've seen that I walked on water. You've seen that I ran in this water to get to you. You've seen I love you. I'm here with you. You saw that I left my wife and everybody behind 3.5 years. You know what I do, right? He says, okay, Peter, if you love me more, I need you to feed the mature sheep, the grown-ups. Make sure they eat and that they eat well. You feed them the way that I'm feeding you. See, Peter, I'm not even waiting on you to ask for forgiveness. I'm waiting on you to just do what you're supposed to. Come on. See, I'm not focused on the data. See, the data, if we get this twisted, the data shows me that you can't ever make it because you haven't apologized. But I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about the institution. If you love me, then become part of the institution again. I need you to sound like me when you speak. I need you to live like I live when you live. I need you to give honor to people the way that I gave honor to them. That's why later on in the book of Acts, when Peter was trying to get up from the people who were Gentiles and trying to play this thing of he better than them and all that just because he's an Israelite and going with other people that look down on people. Remember, not all Israel is Israel. They're not living by law in that moment. He says, hey, man, what you doing? He says, I'm trying to clean them up. I'm trying to make them lawful. What you doing? I did the same thing for you. You were illegal. You weren't lawful. I'm going to try and do the same thing for them. Give them a chance to get clean. Give them a chance to get lawful. Give them a chance to be righteous. But how you going to run when somebody else comes up and now You're more worried about the data. What do they think about you than the institution, what I put in place? They're not going to get this unless you become Israel, right? Romans chapter 8, verse 18, right? The suffering of this present time is not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed. Who's it going to be revealed to? Verse 19, the creature is waiting on the manifestation of the sons of Elohim. You got to manifest. They're looking for something. Why are you so worried about, right, the suffering, the things you chose to go through, when it's not even worthy to be compared to what I'm about to reveal, not only to Yastel first, but then to any nations of people who want to leave the culture they're in and come to the ultimate culture of the Most High. You shall be the teacher, you shall be the root, but they still can be grafted into the tree. Romans chapter 11, 1 Corinthians chapter 11. Right? So he says, Peter, make sure that you love my sheep, my adults, the ones that are mature in this. Make sure you feed them correct, because they're going to be the first step to this. Then they keep eating. And he says, hey, Peter, yeah, what's up? right, dude, what's up this side? Hey, do you love me more than these? Yeah, Lord, I told you I love you. I'm here. Like, I'm the same dude. I swung on somebody. I cut somebody's ear off for you, bro. You remember me? Remember you said that before you chastised me, remember you said that I heard from the Holy Spirit and this and that? Yeah, I love you. He says, okay, cool. Hey, feed my lambs, the babies. Because I don't just feed adults. I feed babies too. I don't feed people that say that they got it all together. I feed the ones that are just new to this, that are born again. The ones that are innocent in this because they don't know what they're doing. The ones that really have been taught that sinning is okay. I got to feed them too. Y'all want to hear? See, before you Peter hasn't said sorry, right? We ever heard, I'm sorry, this and that, blah, blah. He said, Peter, you messed up. Cool. This is how you're going to make it better. This is how you're going to prove to me who you are. This is how you're going to show me what righteousness really is, right? I forgave you already, but we got to build up trust. I'm not focused on the data that show that you're not perfect, because nobody is except me. That's why I'm the sacrifice. You're not. But we're going to work this righteousness out through your deeds. Right? So he says, feed my adult sheep. He says, feed my babies. And then he said, now feed the congregation after that. He says in the third time, he says, Peter, Simon, son of Jones, do you love me more than you love them? He said, Lord, like, what you want from me this time? Like, for real. Like, I'm here, I'm eating. I said, I love you twice, right? Like, because 2 times in our culture, somebody has to say it twice. They say, pay attention. That's why your mama wasn't supposed to say your name a second time. Your daddy was supposed to say your name a second time. You supposed to be, yes. And if you said yes, that was like, ooh, I better follow that up with something coming, or sir, ma'am, something. And you had to run to wherever mom and daddy was, because you couldn't be disrespectful. If they said your name a second time, you knew something was up, right? They were about to put it to you, right? So now, you said, does the Bible say take care of my appearance? Yeah, the Bible says that I should make sure certain groups of us have decided to make sure that we are in line with what the Most High says, as far as even not letting the razor touch our head. And for some of us, that can be free locks and things like that. So yeah, it does. But thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I appreciate you. Even though that was something used for malice, what the enemy uses for evil, it ultimately works out for righteousness. And I appreciate you doing that. And hello to you, because that would be the normal thing that we would talk about, right? As human beings. So I appreciate you and love you very much, even though you don't love me, right? So here are the things see that we had to do. So he says, then take care of the assembly, the flock. You're going to be a pastor, Peter. You're going to make sure that you go around to all these different people, Peter. And so you have to become, see, this guy's preaching the message for us. You got to become somebody where these people who are coming in ignorance and hate and devaluing you, right? And not realizing that when they depreciate you, you actually appreciated value. You have to recognize who you are. And you got to still love them. See, Peter, you said what you said about me. It's out there. You already tried to say, you denied me. You denied me thrice. It's over. You can't take that back. But what you can do is, he said to say, and if you even catch it, he denied him 3 times. He asked him 3 times. Every time you denied me, for every choice is an invoice. Every time you denied me, I had to come back and I had to say what? Every time you denied me, I had to come back and I had to do what? I had to give you a chance to make up for your denial. And that's why people don't like law, because law requires, right? That's why people want the data to just be erased and not realize the institution and the data got to go hand in hand. You want to do whatever you want to do and never make up for what you did. To be forgiven doesn't mean that there's no rebuilding of trust. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Like somebody gonna get it, somebody not gonna like this, but you need to hear, you need to get a what they call as a heaping helping of this, right? You need to get a heaping helping of this, right? You need to get this peanut stew with the right hand and get as much as you can out. You need to grab the biggest piece of fufu and stuff as much of this as you can in your face. You need to get the biggest spoonful of jollof rice, a handful of jollof rice, put this up down your gullet. You need this right here, right? See, like you like talking about forgiveness, but you don't ever want to rebuild trust, right? You want others to rebuild trust for you. But when you ask Yah for forgiveness, what did you ask him about rebuilding his trust? This is the all you eat buffet, right? And it's been paid for already by the Most High. Praise Yah, right? All he said is, if you want, go ahead for every little thing that you give. If you got $10 in your pocket, he said, can you put $1 down on it? But he done paid the price. He just asked for a tribute, right? He asked you for your time. Right, you got 2 hours. He asked you for out of 2 hours, 120 minutes. He said, "Give me 12 of them bad boys." Right. So if you haven't focused on the whole thing, give him 12 right now. Right. Give him glory in your time right now. Give him a tribute of your patience right now. Give him a tribute of your virtue right now. All the stuff that you think makes you. Give 10% now. And get this: if you missed everything else that the Holy Spirit said to you today, right? Every time that you've done something, it was already forgiven. The problem is not whether it's forgiven or not. The problem is, did you do anything to build up the trust again? Give and it shall be given unto thee. The verse before it says, however you judge is how you be judged. However you condemn is how you'll be condemned. However you forgive or do not forgive is how you will be forgiven or not forgiven. Then it says, give, and it shall be given unto thee. Elohim's measure, pressed down, shaken together, and running over, shall men, other people, will give into your bosom. For the same measure you meet, you give out, shall it be given unto thee. You were forgiven already. Yahshua already forgave everything you're ever going to do. The problem is, do you enter into covenant? Watch this. Watch this. See, this is why he said when we do what some call communion, but what we call Passover. He said, as often as you do this, do this in remembrance of me. Remember, remembrance is you were once a member of something cut you off, you became dismembered. Now you're having something attached back to the body, is remembered. So do this to come back into connection with me. As often as you do this. What happened the night of Passover, the initial night in Kemet? Everybody from the Pharaoh on down to Moses, on down to the Levites, on down to whomever, everybody got the same message. Death is coming. You can escape death by simply putting blood on the doorpost and staying inside so that you'll be covered by the blood. And for some reason, we don't make the connection. In our mind, when we say covered by the blood, we always think of like this weird, be dipped completely in the blood and blah, blah, this and that. No. Like, be inside when death comes so that you'll be covered by the blood. And then after death takes a hold of those who didn't want to be covered, then it's time for you to be able to go out into the wilderness and take what's yours. And by the way, who were the people that were covered by the blood? See, don't make this mistake. Somebody gonna miss this. I'm feeling this, right? Somebody gonna get this. It's gonna bless you, right? Don't make this mistake. Was everybody in need of being covered by the blood, or was it only for particular people with a particular birthright? You're gonna miss it. It was not just for an Israelite thing only. It was not just for Israelites only. It was any person who was in a wicked system that needed to be covered by death. The death was being sent into the system. Those who were in the system but not of it were covered by the blood. You still somebody I feel like somebody's still missing it because I'm not saying it the way the Holy Spirit's giving me. Okay, watch this. Was everybody in need of being covered? Right? Let's get the prism correctly. Did everybody need to be covered? Did you catch it? The blood on the doorpost was not for everybody. It did not for every Israelite. There were Israelites who could have been outside when the Spirit came by. Do you hear what I'm saying? There were Israelites who could have stood outside and not had to worry about the blood. There were Kemetic people who could have stood outside and not have to worry about being covered by the blood. They still were in accordance with it, though, and graft themselves in so that they can get certain blessings, right? But they didn't have to be. It was a birthright thing to be covered by the blood. Somebody missing it, right? Somebody missing it. I don't know if you're going to get it. Who was it that Pharaoh spoke against that caused the Most High to say, that's who I'm coming for? The Most High obeyed what Pharaoh said. He was obedient to what Pharaoh said, right? He told Moses, whatever comes out of Pharaoh's mouth, Pharaoh been talking smack, he still don't get it. So he said, Moses, whatever Pharaoh says to you, that's what I got to take care of. Pharaoh spoke to a firstborn, or not firstborn, excuse me. Pharaoh spoke to an Israelite, and he spoke concerning he was going to kill the firstborn of Israel. That's what he said, right? The firstborn, right? Do you hear that? I'm coming specifically for the firstborn. So if you coming for my firstborn, Pharaoh, then I'm coming for yours. I don't know if this is registered in the way you need. He said, Pharaoh specifically said, I'm gonna do to them, Moses, what we tried, what we should have, what we did to y'all, I'm gonna do to your people. Right? And he said, I'm coming for your firstborn. First out the womb. Anybody who's first out the womb, I'm coming for you. That's what he said. And so the Most High said, I'm going to cover. He said, that's what I'm coming for. He didn't come for everybody. Nobody want to talk about this. Nobody want to say this. As often as you do this in remembrance of me. First to come out of the womb of Mary was given as a sacrifice. Why? Because what was given had to be able to cover his own. Even though his own received him not. Right? Anybody who keeps up with these laws, these commandments, and if you love me, keep my commandments. He didn't come for everybody. He came for particular people in the birthright. That's why he says in the word, I came first for the lost house of Israel. That's the firstborn. That's the covenant. That's where it started. If they're not covered, then what are we doing? Somebody, people don't like it when you talk like this, but I'm giving you what your Bible said. Read your Bible, it'll bless you. It doesn't mean that you can't eat with me at the table. It doesn't mean that you can't put the blood on the doorpost. It doesn't mean, but I'm coming for the firstborn, because that's what Pharaoh's coming for. That's what Kemet's coming for. That's what the West is coming for. They're coming for the oldest. They're coming for the firstborn. They're coming for your son. They're coming for your daughter. They're coming for your bloodline. They're coming for your heritage. They're coming for the people that are supposed to take care of the family for generations to come. You're trained the firstborn to take care of the other children. He said, I'm coming for them. That's what Pharaoh said. So he said, in order to make sure that that's taken protected, anybody else that's going to be connected to the firstborn, I've got to protect the firstborn. You said the system is STY or STY? I don't know what STY means. I'm sorry. Right? Is that like pigsty or something? I missed it. Or I don't know if that's a not acronym, whatever they call it, right? So he said, I'm coming for the firstborn. Right? I'm coming for those. Now watch what Revelation chapter 7 says. Watch what Revelation 2:9 says. Watch what Revelation 3:7-9 says. Watch what Revelation 12 says. You missed it, right? A lot of firstborns in prison. A lot of firstborn in this. Exactly, right? Watch this. Watch this. Watch this. I'm coming for the firstborn. That's what the system's coming for. Who is the firstborn? Who is the woman in Genesis chapter 3 that the son would come out of and would crush the head of the enemy while he thought he was doing something by biting his heel? Who is the firstborn, Jeremiah chapter 3, that the same woman is talking about is going to give birth to it? Who is that woman, right? Who is it talking about in Revelation chapter 2, verse 9? Hear what I'm saying? Revelation chapter 2, verse 9. It doesn't mean you can't be grafted in. Romans 11 says you can. Doesn't mean you can't be grafted in. Revelation 7 will say that you can. But hear what I'm saying? He came for what? The firstborn. Who is the firstborn? Well, watch this. Revelation chapter 2, verse 9, right? Talking about the second assembly, the assembly of Smyrna, right? I know your works and your patience and your tribulation. I even know that you think you are poor, but really you are rich. Why? Because you can't steal from poor people. You can only steal from rich people, right? I also know the blasphemy of those that say that they are Yashta and they're not. How you doing, Sister Mary? I also know the blasphemy of them that say that they are you and are not. And I know that some of y'all had to deal with, what does it say after that? Prison and all that. And you're going to have to deal with some stuff over some years. But he says, if you hang in there, I promise you that it's about to turn for you. Let those who have an ear to hear what Ravak is saying to the Qadasham, or the assembly. What does it say in Revelation chapter 3, verse 7-9? Yahshua says, I'm the one that's holy, I'm the one that's true, and I'm the one that holds the seven I'm sorry, the one that's holy, the one that's true, and I'm getting myself mixed up. Sorry. I'm the one that's holy, I'm the one that's true. Oh, and I'm the one who has the key of David, or of David. He says, I open doors, Dalit, that no man can shut, and I shut doors, Dalit, that no man can open, because he's Vav, right? And then he says, and you only have a little strength. He says, and once again in verse 9, he gets to a point where he says, I know the blasphemy, once again, of those who say that they are you and are not, but are really the synagogue of the Satan. That's what he says. He says, and I'm going to have them to come and worship at your feet. That means they're going to learn how to worship because you're going to teach them this word correctly. And he says, I'm going to show them that I have always loved you. What does he say in Revelation chapter 7? Revelation chapter 7, verses 1-3, destruction is about to happen. In Revelation 6, the four horsemen have shown up. The people have asked under the throne, when are you going to take vengeance? The choir, what you call the firmament, has been rolled back like a scroll. It's going down, right? And all of a sudden, Revelation chapter 7, there's angels that are ready to go ahead and release the four winds that destruction might happen. But a fifth angel pops and says, hold up. Before we do this, there's a group of people that must be sealed. There's somebody that's supposed to have covenant, contract, a seal on them. Who are those people? Start at Revelation chapter 7, verse 4. It starts with Judah, Yehovah, but then it goes through the 12 tribes. They have to be sealed. And then after that in Revelation 7, it says, then I saw people of all nations and tongues and kindreds and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then they came in as well. So, right. And then Revelation 12 tells us after that, that the devil is trying to come for Yahshua. He can't get to him. Him and his demons lose, and they get sent down to earth like a bolt of lightning. It says, then he starts looking to try and get to Israel, this woman with 12 crowns, who has gone into the wilderness, just like we did to prepare ourselves for Canaan. We're now preparing ourselves for a new Yad Hashalam that's going to come down to meet the earth, heaven meet the earth. And then while all that's going on, it says, meantime, there's this that the devil is trying to get to us. He spits water in the dream. It means people. He's spitting the people who worship the devil. He's spitting his followers at us, but they can't get to us. The clay keeps coming up and covering us because we're separated. So now he goes back and he looks for the remnant. And then out of his people, he builds the beast, the government, who then has the Antichrist spirit, the second beast that pops up, that has a number of a name, right? Navan Kassar. All that being said, he came back for the firstborn to cover them with the blood, right? But anybody who therefore is grafted in, you become covered with what we're covered by. Yeah, how you doing, Osland? UK in the house. We're gonna have to get y'all UK folk together, even if it's just 4 or 5 of y'all at first. We got too many of y'all coming on. I gotta figure this out. I gotta figure out how to reach out to you guys. But yeah, see, so you don't like it, but it's real. It's in your word. It's in your Bible. It's in your Bible. Hear me out. Like that, Yastel has to be covered, has to be sealed. Matter of fact, some of y'all, especially if you're on TikTok, some of you guys, I've tried to reach out to you, even through DMs, and we got to be friends of each other. So some of y'all, if I haven't reached out through DMs, we got to be friends. Um, Both friends before I can actually contact you, and we can contact each other just to let y'all know. But this is stuff that's real. It's real. You hear what I'm saying? It's real. Did you hear that again? This is real. You have to be in a position to where you're going to honor what the word says. You want all this stuff to come to you, but you don't want to be honor it. You want the data. You like the data. You've institutionalized the data, but the institution is what the data verifies, and the institution also verifies the data. You cannot institutionalize data. How you doing, Minister Joseph? You cannot institutionalize data. It won't work. It won't work. It will not work. It will not work. Y'all hear me? You can try all you want, but you can't institutionalize data. Data either supports the institution, or the institution should have certain data that we see. That's the way it works. That's the way it works. That being said, thank you guys for being on. I appreciate you guys. Just a little bit of announcement type stuff, real quick, especially for those of you who are part of the community. And if you want to become part of the community, hey, just listen up. I know that we had this a little different last time. It's been some days. I had to take a couple of days off. I'm still a little sore all over my body. But thank you guys for your prayers and things of that nature. I appreciate you. So this is what we got planned. I think everybody fits into some of this. If not, just contact me and we'll make sure we fit you in somewhere, because I know we got a couple states and different things, but we got different regions going on, and I'm having to take a little bit more accountability personally on some of these regions. It doesn't mean that but we have some Zoom meetings popping up. And so some of them have changed since when I talked to you last time. Just want to put this out there. So we're working on having more, meetups in person and things like that, and Zoom meetings. We do a lot of stuff besides just the live sessions. We have people that live near each other, and we try to make sure people can get with like-minded people all the time, especially as we're going to start having some more food trade and things like that, seeds and all that stuff being traded, and just the Hebrew holy days coming up, things like that. If you'd like to partake, or even just things we do in the community to help people, if you want to be partakers in all those things, just let us know. But this is what we're going to do. So Zoom meetings that are going to be coming up this Saturday. So that's 2 days from now. Well, first of all, let me start off with February 17th, which is tomorrow. We're going to start intermittent fasting. So from February 17th through February 23rd, we're going to do intermittent fasting. What that is saying is that from sunup to sundown, we're trying to make sure that we do our best to not eat. Some of you have different situations. If you have children, of course, especially depending on their age, don't necessarily force them to fast, okay? Especially if they're not used to not having 3 meals a day, stuff like that. Please don't do that. But if you take certain medicines, we know you have to eat, things like that, right? But if you're in Georgia or the Carolinas, all right, we're going to put you guys together for this meeting coming up. So if you're in Georgia or the Carolinas, on February the 18th, this Saturday coming up at 11 a.m. Eastern or New York time, it's going to be 17th through the 23rd. On the 23rd is when we're going to do our prayer service again, like we did last time, prayer and worship, where on the evening service, or on the evening gathering, get together. I guess we call these services, I don't know. But on the evening live session, we'll get together and we'll just type in our prayers on TikTok, Kofi_42. But once again, February 18th. I got to stay locked in real quick. February 18th at 11 a.m. Eastern New York time. Those that are in Georgia and the Carolinas, we're going to have a meeting all together. Okay. So please, ma'am, please, sir, come together so we can talk about things, including meetups or even certain things. We'll probably do a little bit of Bible study, and we're asking you guys to be somewhat willing, even if you don't show your face, even if you're typing in stuff, if you can somewhat be willing to kind of chime in some, so that we can start learning people's personalities, with the goal and the hopes of us learning each other, coming together as community as much as possible. Okay. I'll be trying to send this out, by the way, all this information. I'm going to try and send it out if we have your text, if we have your number or your email or your DM, somehow, some way, we're going to send this out to you. So just check your stuff in between these dates, from now and in between these dates. Okay. So if you're in Georgia, Carolinas, on February 18th, 11 a.m. Eastern New York time, that's where we're going to meet up. If you're in Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, even Louisiana, I guess we can throw Oklahoma possibly in there, even though I would think Oklahoma's more Texas-ish. But you know, but if you're in those places, Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, or Louisiana, what we're asking is on February 18th, this Saturday at 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time, or what is 11:30 a.m. Central time. We're going to make sure that we get together as far as Alabama, Tennessee, Kentucky, Arkansas, Louisiana. All right. On February the 25th, on February the 25th. All right. So that's not this Saturday, the 18th, but next Saturday, it'll be as follows. If you're in Texas, or if you want to include Oklahoma with that as well, matter of fact, I'll just go ahead and do that officially. So if you're in Texas or Oklahoma, on February the 25th, we're going to have a Zoom meeting just for those in Texas and Oklahoma. And it'll be at 11 a.m. Eastern New York time, or at your time, that'll be 10 a.m. Central. All right. So at 10 a.m. Central, if you're in Texas or Oklahoma, we're going to have a Zoom meeting. If you're in at 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time, or 11:30 a.m. Central time, if you're in Illinois, Michigan, the Dakotas, Missouri, Ohio, Wisconsin, or Indiana. All right, I'm gonna say that again. 12:30 p.m. Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Central. If you're in Illinois, Michigan, the Dakotas, Missouri, Ohio, Wisconsin, or Indiana, okay, right? We're gonna have a meeting at that time on February 25th at 12:30 Eastern, 11:30 a.m. Central. If you are on Pacific time, right? Arizona, Nevada, Cali, Oregon. I think we got a couple Washington. We had a few Washington State. Um, I don't know if we have Montana yet. I think we might have one person in Montana. So, but if you're on Pacific time, and that doesn't even mean because Montana, depending on where you are, it might not be Pacific time. But if you're on Pacific time, if you're on the West Coast, we're gonna have a Zoom meeting just for you guys at 11 a.m. Pacific time. So 2 p.m. Eastern time, but it'll be at 11 a.m. Pacific time. Okay? It'll be at 11 a.m. Pacific time. All right? That'll be on February 25th. Then on March 4th, right? Those in Floridian meeting, the last one, y'all already know this, but on March 4th, if you're in Florida, right, which is a whole region to itself. So on March 4th, if you're in Florida, that's going to be 11 a.m. 11 a.m. Eastern New York time, we'll be having the meeting in Florida on March 4th. On March 4th, though, at 12:30 p.m. Eastern time, New York time, those of you in New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, Delaware, and New Jersey, and I'm not sure if I feel like I missed something in there. I always be missing something in there. But if you're in that area at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, we'll be meeting on March 4th. Once again, 12:30 p.m. Eastern on March 4th is who? New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, Delaware, New Jersey. All right. Lastly, if you're in Maryland, Virginia, DC, that includes the DMV, or even if you're in like the seven cities, if you're like Norfolk, if you're Suffolk, if you're wherever, right? Even down Southern Virginia as well. If you're in Maryland, anywhere, if you're in Baltimore, if you're in DC, and also Pennsylvania as well, right? Philly, Lancaster, wherever, right? If you're in those states or cities, right? Pennsylvania, Maryland, DC, and Virginia, we're going to do a meetup on Zoom for 2 p.m. Eastern, on 2 p.m. Eastern time, 2 p.m. New York time. Okay. You said in the Brooklyn meetups, we just talked about this. So if you're on March 4th at 12:30 p.m. Eastern, if you're in New York, right? Rhode Island, I'm talking about the state, right? Besides just the 5 boroughs, right? If you're in New York, Rhode Island, Connecticut, Maine, Delaware, or New Jersey, you can be on. We're going to do something for you guys specifically at 12:30. Okay. Now, here's the deal. Also, okay, we know some of you are also close to places in Pennsylvania and stuff like that. So I might give some of you different meeting invites or things as well, right? So just keep an eye on that, because I'm learning as we're growing where people are close, this and that, or whatever. But if you're in those areas, if we have your information, if we have like email, or if we're friends, once again, if we're on TikTok, we got to be friends with each other, or else I can't send you DMs. Okay. So if you want us to either send you a text, email, or DMs, we got to make sure we have your information. All right. Just putting that out there, making that clear. So the Zoom links will be sent out, especially those of you who are going to be this Saturday. I had a couple days that I was, messed up a little bit and sick. So I'm trying to get myself back in order and stuff. So just to let you guys know, we'll put that out there. And so remember, at the end of this, we do our shout outs, especially if you're on TikTok. If you're on YouTube, there's ways you can see in the description as far as how to get in touch with us, right? So please, ma'am, please, sir, feel free to do that. Reach out to us, text us, send us your info on there, whatever. If you're on TikTok, you can wait to the end of this and just simply, when we do our shout outs, do your shout out the way we're going to explain to you in a second. And we appreciate you guys for being on. Okay. So I will try to make sure that I'm repeating that over and over and over again. And as we have these meetings, oh, by the way, March 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern New York time, we're going to have a SOC meeting with everybody. Again, it's been a while since we had one of those, but we've been trying to do them in our areas to make sure we catch up on some of that. So we'll have a whole SOC meeting at 11 a.m. On March 11th at 11 a.m. Eastern New York time, right after the podcast is over. For those of you who are in, so we'll do that on March 11th. At March 11th at about 12:30 p.m. Eastern New York time, all of our moderators on YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, whatever, the podcast, etc. All of our moderators, we'd like to have a meeting with you guys on that specific date and time. Okay? Alrighty. So we appreciate you. Thank you so much for being out. We honor you guys. Those who are in Great Britain, England, we've been having some people in Ireland, and I think we had somebody from I can't remember the other place. I get messed up with the British Empire thing sometimes. What is it? England, Ireland, Wales. I think it was Wales. And then maybe somebody in Scotland as well, which obviously those aren't close, but you know what I'm saying? But especially those of you who are in England, we've been having a few of you guys come on. So we're going to try and do something for you guys specific right now. I'm just trying to make sure I can reach out to all of you guys. And we might ask one of you to kind of be somebody that can kind of start connecting with people over there, so that we can have something for you guys as well soon too. So I'm excited about that. It's been a little while. We used to have a lot of people in Ireland and stuff, and so we're kind of starting getting used to people from other countries. We're having people in Jamaica, a lot of people in Jamaica, some people in the Bahamas, people in the West Indies, a lot. So we praise Yah, and we're trying to, as it comes into being, we're just trying to be obedient and keep the same thing going on. So so we're definitely in there. But so this is what we would like you to do as we get ready to take our leave. And as always, please check out my wife, the Honorable Maya, on TikTok, YouTube, or website, and Pinterest at Bloom and Flourish, not A&D, the letter N, Bloom and Flourish. She's a healer, herbalist, chemist, and biologist by degree. We thank you guys so much for listening in again today. We really, really do appreciate you so much. And we honor what you guys put in. And we don't take it lightly that you guys decided to spend some time with us today. You could have been doing anything else at this time, but you decided to go ahead and allow us to be able to speak into you today. So we're thankful and grateful to you. We give all praise and honor once again to Yahweh Elohim. And we thank you guys so much for all the great things that the Most High is doing in your life, and allowing him to speak into that. We appreciate him for being him. So we thank you. We honor you. Please study this word and what we talked about today, so you can be hearers and doers simultaneously. And as always, this has been Pastor Kofi, Pastor Servant of Christ, where we are always changing lives one mind at a time by being the voice of the voiceless and speaking the unspoken. And don't forget your affirmations: Romans 8:1, Romans 8:11, Romans 8:18, Romans 8:19, Romans 8:28. And remember, as always, y'all still that you are loved, you are necessary, you're majestic, you're fearfully and wonderfully made, in you, which is all of us working together, will be the reason why people who are in this system no longer have to be of it. Shalom to everybody. For those of you who are still on with us on TikTok, we're going to